the officials and the media that are present, and I'd like to call for a moment's silence. Thank you. I'm going to ask the Secretariat to confirm that we quorum.
We'll do it later.
You do it later, but we're on 189, so we carry on. Thank you. I'm going to now ask the Mayor to do his opening address.
Attendance registration first.
Okay, that's what I meant. Sorry. Okay. Please register according to the registration. Click the link in the instant messaging box if you haven't already. Oh, we're ready?
I see. So it's got 175 for now, so we
can carry on.
Yeah, correct.
Should I now?
Just say we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are quorum. We're going to proceed. Mr. Mayor, can I hand over to you?
Speaker.
Councillor?
Yes, maybe just before Speaker, the Mayor addresses us. I just want to double check something with you. You have just did the acknowledgements now, but
Yes.
there is one important component that you did not acknowledge. I am not sure whether that was deliberate or this was a sincere omission. The members of the public, because the Municipal Systems Act, yes.
Councillor, I will address that further on. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Honourable Speaker, good morning. Good morning to all the councillors, city manager, other officials, colleagues, members of the public, all our guests, the media, all the listeners on a new YouTube live stream link. I greet you. Before we start today, I would appreciate, Honourable Speaker, a moment of silence for all those who have lost a loved one, from our city colleagues to all members of the public due to COVID-19 or any other cause. Some of our city colleagues and councillors are currently in hospital as a result of the virus, and our thoughts and prayers are with them. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Honourable Speaker, may I continue? Thank you. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to announce that Councillor Rob Quintus has officially been appointed as Mayoral Committee Member for Transport. Councillor Quintus is the Ward Councillor of Hout Bay and has also served on the Environmental and Spatial Planning Committee, which allowed him to get a high-level view of the transport environment in the city of Cape Town. He was also acknowledged by the Speaker in 2019 as Councillor of the Year, an indication of his hard work and dedication to serving with excellence. As Ward Councillor of Hout Bay, Councillor Quintus has served this community with care and diligence over the years and will continue to be available to the residents of Imizamayetu, Hangberg, Landatlu, and the Valley. I wish you well in his new portfolio. Speaker, since this global pandemic started, it has placed a strain on all of us in one way or another, in our personal lives as well as in the workplace. I'm proud that as the city of Cape Town, we were able to rapidly adapt our systems to incorporate a new way of working that allowed us to continue delivering services while limiting the service interruptions as much as possible. While some backlogs developed due to the national regulations preventing our staff from working during the height of the first stage of hard lockdown, I'm pleased that we have pulled together and dealt with those backlogs, with the majority of our services returning to normality. While we are here today to discuss the tabling of the 2021-2022 adjustment budget, I want to first use this opportunity to call on all residents who are eligible to get the COVID-19 vaccine to please go and get it. I understand that some of our residents are scared of the vaccine, and I've read a lot of misinformation on social media with stories on Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp that tell them all kinds of horror stories. If these stories were really true, then ask yourself why millions of doctors and healthcare workers around the world have already had the jab. 1.8 billion people in the world are already fully vaccinated. 9.5 million of those are South African. Please call your GP if you're not sure about getting the vaccine. I'd rather trust my doctor than someone I don't know on Facebook or Twitter. I've been vaccinated and I'm pleading with all our residents to please get your jab as soon as possible. The Burger of today has a great article on page 8 about the dangers of not being vaccinated. Other newspapers had similar stories during the course of the week. When your loved ones end up in hospital and can't breathe and have to be put into a coma and intubated, and you spend weeks hoping and praying that they come out of it, but they don't, and they die because of the virus, then it will be far, far too late. Honorable Speaker, most of us should have mild symptoms if we get infected, but nobody knows how you are going to react. And even if you have mild symptoms, you could give the virus to someone who has the worst reaction. Young, healthy people dying of this virus, and the whole of the population in Cape Town must get this message. I know many of you are scared, but at the end of the day, we need to make the right choices. We need to make the right decisions. And I want to urge you, forget about the misinformation. And I think this speaker is a very serious message, because vaccine apathy and that sort of thing is creeping in. Our vaccine local, like the Cape Town International Convention Center, like even Athlone Stadium, we opened on Monday. Let me say to you, and looking at the papers even of today, it is empty. And we need to address that problem. People are staying away. The question is why? And as Mayor of Cape Town, my message to the public of Cape Town is, go and get vaccinated as soon as possible. And I hope councillors will do exactly the same. Speaker, let me get to some other main business of today. I hereby table the adjustment budget. I want to applaud each and every city official for ensuring that the proposed budget amendments will have no detrimental impact on the provision of basic services. The primary reason for the recommendation to adapt in August 2021 adjustment budget is the rollover of carry-over commitments from the 2020-2021 financial year and administrative transfers / virements of budgetary provisions. Section 28(2)(e) of the Municipal Financial Management Act states that an adjustment budget may authorize the spending of funds that were unspent at the end of the past financial year, where the underspending could not reasonably have been foreseen at the time, to include projected rollovers when the annual budget for the current year was approved by the Council. Honourable Speaker, operating a major metro like Cape Town under a global pandemic and managing the finances as efficiently as we have is worth pausing to reflect on and appreciate the magnitude of what we have accomplished. The national lockdown declared on 23rd March 2020, when all citizens were ordered to stay home for a period of 21 days, commencing at midnight on 26 March 2020, would forever be considered as the start of the devastating effect on an already vulnerable economy. As the country eased in and out of restrictions levels in riding the first and then second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, municipalities had to adapt to the impact of the economy on its operations and the impact of the affordability levels of its consumers. The 2020-2021 approved budget included an amended viable financial plan over the short to medium term, taking the variables and impacts emanating from the COVID-19 pandemic into account. The 2020-21 budget was thus prepared with much uncertainty on how the COVID-19 pandemic would affect consumers' payment behavior, but the city has managed to maintain a high average collection ratio despite the devastating effects COVID-19 had on the economy. The collection rate outcome for the first 5 months of the 2020-2021 financial year remained strong, showing higher outcomes when compared to the budgeted collection rates. The 2020-2021 budget collection rates for all trading services were therefore revised upwards in the adjustments budget following the mid-year review and assessment processes. This upward prediction, although not at pre-COVID-19 levels and due to debt management actions resuming, followed through to the 2021-2022 financial year. In terms of our capital budget, it is proposed that an amount of 513 million rand be rolled over. The bulk of these funds, 253.3 million, will go towards the Water and Waste Department, who had procured a number of additional vehicles and equipment that could not be delivered before the end of the financial year due to the pandemic, as well as major repair costs due to serious vandalism to city infrastructure that has affected the service quality experience by so many of our residents. Honourable Speaker, I want to conclude my comments on the adjustment budget in saying that I'm truly proud of the way in which the city has navigated this pandemic. And I want to thank our residents for their patience when there were unavoidable lapses in services. I also want to thank our residents for supporting us through maintaining their rates payments, as we simply would not be able to maintain the sound financial position and keep delivering services without it. As I close off today, I want to once again draw attention to the gender-based violence that continues to terrorize our communities. Every year we mark Women's Day and we call on our communities to pause for a moment and appreciate the women in our lives and all that they do for us. I want to call on the fathers, Honourable Speaker, the fathers in our communities to raise their boys right. Teach them about respect, and that is their job, to protect the woman in their lives. Teach them that there is never any excuse that can justify lifting a hand to a woman. And Honourable Speaker, we need to make sure that we spread this message to all our wards, to all our communities, to all the people out there, to all the men out there. The city of Cape Town, with all its councillors and officials, have an integral role to play in communicating this very serious message. We cannot want to open newspapers on a day-to-day basis. Women's eyes taken out, women's bodies mutilated, mainly by our men out there. It is today's young boys that are tomorrow's men, and the fathers and mothers and grannies and grandpas and uncles and aunties all have the chance to make sure that the young boys of today grow up right. We can break the cycle of violence, and it starts with the young boys of today. My boy and your boy. In closing, I thank government as a whole, national and provincial, for the continued cooperation during these trying times. Speaker, please note that I will have to leave council for a few minutes later today in order to attend a meeting with National Minister of Transport, Fikile Mbalula, a meeting about the opening of the Central Line and the relocation of those currently illegally occupying the line. Deputy Mayor will stand in for me in my absence. Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of Rule 11.2, we will take 5 oral questions. Councillors, you know this opportunity comes and we need that list of people wanting to ask questions, and it closed at 5. So we'll start with Councillor Bernardi. Then we'll go to Councillor Satashi, Councillor Zodani, Councillor Haskin, and Councillor Michelini. Thank you. Councillor Bernardi. All right, if Councillor Bernardi is not ready, we'll go to Councillor Satashi.
You asked to be unmuted.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you
Good morning, Councillor.
Thank you for your address. Mr. Mayor, since you have quoted the newspapers of today.
Councillors, just give us a minute here to get the IT working so that you're unmuted.
Are you talking to me, Speaker?
Speaker is Councillor Satashi.
Satashi's,
if he's
ready, he can go.
Are you talking to me? Speaker? Speaker, I can hear everything from my side. I don't know why you said I must be
unmuted now, Speaker.
All right, just can you kindly wait now, because I did say Councillor Satashi could speak because we battled to get you unmuted, Councillor Bernardi, so you'll be next. Okay. Councillor Satashi, can you proceed?
No, thank you very much, Speaker, because I can hear clearly from my side. I indicated the Speaker to the Mayor, since he has quoted the newspapers of today. Why you don't quote, Mr. Mayor, the Cape Times that has reported that the city is ranked 5th amongst the municipalities in South Africa in terms of corruption? Don't you think that it is more immoral for this administration of City of Cape Town to pay legal fees for an alleged fraudster, Councillor Cruz? Don't you think that is immoral? Because we are abusing the taxpayers. Lastly, why don't you update us about the litigation between the City of Cape Town and one of its residents around the employment equity in the City of Cape Town? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Councillor Bernardi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and good morning to colleagues.
Madam Speaker, I believe that I requested
Councillor
Adams.
Bernardi. Councillor Adams, your request was not in before Councillor Bernardi, and will you please not interject? Thank you. Councillor Bernardi.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. I'd just like to pose a question to the Honourable Mayor to ask him how the city can assist our residents of Cape Town who are struggling to fund or afford the new electricity tariffs that the city has implemented. If the Honourable Mayor could give some assistance on that front, Speaker, it would be appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Zondani.
Thank you, Speaker. Morning, everybody in the House. Speaker, the Mayor, morning, Speaker, Mayor. Mayor, you refer to adjustment budget by saying it will have no detrimental effect on the provision of basic services. But the ANC wants to remind you, Mayor, that it has already had, the service delivery has already been delayed. So we don't understand what you mean by that. We will take it as just a textbook reading. But Mayor, what the ANC wants to bring forth to you is that, have you noticed that there have been so many irregular expenditures brought in front of this council?
Councillor,
under your administration?
it's a question to the Mayor on his speech.
Yes, and that impacts.
That's not on the speech.
On the provision of basic services. Have you realized that under the leadership of the current municipal manager? What is your take on that? Thanks.
Councillor Haskett.
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning. Good morning, Mayor and colleagues. Mayor, thank you for your strong words about against gender-based violence. We appreciate that. The ACDP's question to you, however, is on the first section of your speech, which related to the vaccines. Now, the question then is, the Western Cape government is considering a plan that will require people who are fully vaccinated to only those people to be allowed to enter entertainment venues in the city. Do you support that? And then the Western Cape government is also now recruiting school kids as vaccine lobbyists to go and pressurize their parents at homes. Do you support that as well? Thank you.
Councillor Mcheleni. Councillor Mcheleni, are you online? Not online. Okay, then he will forfeit that turn and we'll move to Councillor Adams for the fifth question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to Mr. Mayor, regarding the COVID and the vaccines, it's all well and good to come out the way you have, blaming people, talking about conspiracies and the apathy and things, why, and the venues that you basically have made available for vaccines and why it is so empty. The thing is, maybe you should look at a different angle and say, what are the reasons why people are not responding to this? Because there is no clear answers. There's no clear states data on it, because you'll get all the data, but there's no data of how many people have died after taking a vaccine. And the thing is, give us the clarity on the vaccine, because it does not stop, it does not heal, it does not prevent. Give us those stats. And you cannot tell me, if I do not have a vaccine, that I cannot do X, Y, and Z within your city. Because I think I have the right, as a healthy person and an intelligent person, not to take the vaccine. So change your attitude towards how you want to do it. But that is not the way by you are trying to tell people they are substantial proof. There is no proof that the vaccine is working. You give us the proof, and then we will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, would you like to respond to the questions?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let me start with Councillor Adams. I think there's no reason for the Councillor to get upset. It is questioning the manner in which he put his question forward. I think I tried my utmost best in my capacity as Mayor to assist government as a whole. That is why in my closing statements I thank government as a whole. We are all in it, national, provincial and local. And this vaccine issue is not entirely completely driven first and foremost by local government. It's driven by National Department of Health with the assistance of the provinces as the secondary big brother partner and then with the assistance of local government. And the regulations and all the issues pertaining to the vaccine doesn't get made in the corridors of the city of Cape Town. I think Councillor Adams needs to understand that as well. But as a responsible person, I need to say, looking at what's happening across the world is opening. You can see it with major sporting activities and other major events across the world. People not even wearing masks anymore. Why? Because 80+%, up to 90+% of the population is vaccinated. That is true. So it is a clear indication from the rest in the world that vaccinations are working. It have the desired effect. Why must South Africans be different? And at the end of the day, Honourable Councillor Adams, you also need to open your eyes. The stats is available. It's available online. You can see it every day on national television and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you can check with the South African Medical Council and that sort of thing. There is no reason for us not to have the necessary stats, but I think I refer to all the misinformation on social media that is doing the rounds from people that is not even a medical expert. Each and every person is now an expert in the field with regard to vaccines and COVID and that sort of thing. But let me get to Councillor Haskin and the comments made by the Western Cape government. I think we all need to play a meaningful role to get our people vaccinated. And the comment with regard to if you are not fully vaccinated and that sort of thing, I think we need to understand that we need to take our cue from the medical field. If I urge my family to go and get the jab, I think each and every one needs to make it out in his own mind what you want to do, if you want to take the vaccine or not, it's your choice. But look, to urge children to talk to the parents, I don't see anything particularly wrong with that. Not to pressurize parents, but to have an open discussion with parents and for children to say, our economy, dad and mom will not be open if you are not vaccinated. And at the end of the day, if there's not a certain amount, a huge percentage of the population vaccinated, will our economy and society be opened by national government? I doubted that very, very much. And at the end of the day, I think we need to become responsible people. We need to become people that are not listening to shenanigans and that sort of thing. I think we need to take the cue of our medical councils with regard to all of these vaccine issues. In the iron box, I pick up the comments by Councillor Zahid Badruddin, and he is the leading person in MACO dealing with the vaccines and with COVID-19 and that sort of thing. And I think the clear message is that the vaccines are safe, it is ethical, etc., etc. And to urge people to talk to others, I think it is the right thing to do. We must continuously talking about this. I take the point with regard to asking children to pressurize adults and parents and that sort of thing. The issue with regard to Councillor Zondani's question, yes, Councillor, I fully agree with you. I'm not saying there's no effect on basic services. I think I said it in my speech. COVID-19 did have an effect on service delivery, but we are busy making it right. We are busy turning the tide around. I have continuous meetings with senior management, and I had a lengthy discussion again last night about other service delivery issues with the city manager. I had a discussion early this morning with senior staff, executive directors. It's a continuous issue in the city to address lapses in service delivery to get it right. So it's not a case of that COVID and the regulations had no effect. Yes, it did have some effect. The issue with regard to irregular expenditure, we have a system in place in council to deal with that. at the end of the day, I'm happy with our internal systems, with our internal controls. Some of it appear on our agenda today with regard to I don't like irregular expenditure, because the first indication in the newspapers with regard to irregular expenditure is that it gets said there is fraud involved. Now, that is why we send all these irregular expenditure issues under the chairmanship of Councillor Yahya Adams to discuss, to deliberate, to interrogate, etc., etc. And that is the system I'm referring to. But in many cases, Councillor Sondani, it is found that irregular expenditure is not always a stroke fraud as well. Definitely not. But in cases where it is found that fraudulent activities is involved, the city is not sweeping that under the carpet. The city are dealing with it in a very appropriate manner. And I think we need to recognize the internal controls and systems of the city of Cape Town as well. But where you are correct, the city manager sitting here in Ray Alex with me, I am against irregular expenditure. We need to turn that tide around. We need to get it right. Councillor Bernardi, the issue with regard to the new electricity tariffs. I was on radio with 9 radio stations last night to debate, to discuss this issue. There is a wrong narrative doing the rounds in Cape Town that the city of Cape Town's tariffs, electricity tariffs, is of the most expensive in the country. That the city of Cape Town's tariffs is the most exorbitant of all metropolitan municipalities, which is not the case. And I think even we as councillors need, and I'm not saying you, Councillor Bernardi, and I thank you for the question, but I also need to give the correct message. Councillors need to take stock of what's the city of Cape Town's tariffs are like and compare that to the rest of the country. And then you will see that our tariffs is in a ballpark category amongst all the other metros where I want to say it is acceptable. But yes, no one referring to where it originated from. That is why the city of Cape Town took the National Department of Energy to court, to the Gauteng High Court. And the court have decided in favor of the city of Cape Town's argument. And that is why the National Department of Energy came up with a directive to allow IPPs also to produce energy. Eskom's energy is absolutely exorbitant. Everybody is rushing to the municipalities, but no one is saying to NERSA and Eskom, why is your tariff nearly 18%? The city of Cape Town's tariff is in the region of just over 13.5%. I think it's 13.7. But at the end of the day, other metros' tariffs is much higher than that of the city of Cape Town, and still the city of Cape Town get hammered that its tariffs is exorbitant. So I want to say that there's many other ways how the city subsidize people. The 50 kilowatts free electricity per month for the disadvantaged households is still there for them to make use of. And for those that cannot pay their services charges, earning less than 3,500 household income in the month, how the city of Cape Town subsidized those households. And at the end of the day, no one thanked the city of Cape Town for its 4 billion rand to actually subsidize and to write off rental arrears, services charges, arrear charges, etc., etc. And my office received hundreds of beautiful messages of mails from residents across the board saying thank you to the city of Cape Town for taking the hand of the poverty, disadvantaged, stricken, and even the elderly people, the residents, to write off their areas to assist them as far as possible. And there was a very bizarre question last night. Why are we urging people even to switch off their geysers and that sort of thing? And why not? If a geyser is taking the bulk of the electricity usage of a household, why must you have your geyser on for a whole day long? We can go into the dynamics, etc., etc. But let me get to Councillor Sutashe. Look, if there is fraud in the city of Cape Town, I want to say to you immediately, we are dealing with each and every piece of fraudulent activities in a very appropriate manner. We don't sweep it under the carpet. I just want to say with regard to, and if Councillor Sutashe is aware of any fraud, bring it under our attention. We will deal with it. And if we need to sack any politician or any councillor or any official staff member, we will do that. But let me say about Councillor Gross the following. Yesterday, myself and the Speaker had a meeting with the Hawks. And because they want to go to court and trial and that sort of thing about this case. And during that hearing, I said to them, where is your proof of your alleged fraud? You are acting on behalf of the city of Cape Town, and the city of Cape Town is not party to the court documents and the court's papers. You're fighting a case for the city, and at the end of the day, according to the city of Cape Town, all of the monies, Councillor Sutashe, you might refer to where Councillor Gross was involved with, all those monies have been accounted for. I asked the city for a full-scale investigation into that, and the city's financial administration was of the opinion no fraud. Now I said, how is it that you, as the police coming up by saying, you telling the city there's fraud committed, the city saying no, and you saying there was no food parcels bought, the city say, here's the proof, and still the Hawks are saying there's no food parcels bought. And you're saying we should not have channeled the funds to a third party, but the city's policy making provision for that. And I said, where's your case if that is the case? And at the end of the day, then I see who's the people that laid the charges. And I could say to the Hawks, that's where the problem are lying. Frivolous charges, and I said, the city of Cape Town will get at them, and we are coming for those people, laying the frivolous charges against the councillor. Councillor Gross have suffered enough, and that suffering of Councillor Gross by the Hawks and by the shenanigans with the frivolous charges must now come to an end. Just maybe lastly, yeah. Okay. Sorry, my apologies. The city manager was there just whispering in my ear, and with all the alleged charges of fraud, and they just say to me, I must convey that some of our councillors is of the opinion, if it is alleged complaints, alleged fraud, alleged whatever, that some people have it in the mind that it is real and it is true, and in many instances it is not. Thank you, City Manager, and Honourable Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Can we move then on to the Chief Whip for leave of absence?
Sorry, Speaker.
No, we're not taking any further debate on that matter. The Mayor's address is closed. Godfrey, sort that out. Can we move on to the leave of absence, please?
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Speaker, the apologies for this morning as follows. On leave, Councillor van der Merwe, that is Alderman Jan van der Merwe, Councillors Yosi, Benica, Nchodo, Clark, Murray, Kubeni, Hansen. And then on sick leave, it's Councillors Tim, Ras, Mfakani, Adams, Nkankani. And then leaving early today, Speaker would be Councillors Sono and Councillor Mahango. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Speaker, Councillor Dudley, can I please just add something?
Councillor Dudley, this is not the forum to give your leave of absence or you're leaving early. You do that through the Chief Whip. Can we move on? I just want to give you the summary of the councillors in attendance.
Oh dear.
According to the registration, we have 47 ANC councillors, 134 DA councillors, 2 ACDP, 2 Al Jamar, 1 ARC, no CMC, 1 COPE, 1 DI, 1 Freedom Front Plus, 6 EFF, 1 PA, 1 UDM, which gives us a total of 197 councillors out of 227, but it's just been brought to my attention now that the ANC have gone up to 49. So for the purposes later of registering the votes for and against, those are the figures we have until we have them amended. Thank you. Councillor
Haynes.
Yes, Councillor Haynes.
My apologies for doing this. It has just been brought to my attention. I've not informed the administration yet. Councillor Simbeko is sharing with Councillor Jali, which brings the ANC to 50.
All right, thank you. We'll check that. Thank you very much. Councillor Haskin, your point of order?
Speaker, thank you. At the beginning of the question session, you asked, I think I heard you saying that people who want to ask questions should indicate so by 5 p.m. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dwani, I'm sorry, we only allowed 5 questions and your name came up later. I want to then...
That's fine, Speaker. That's fine, Madam Speaker. I just want to correct you.
Thank you.
EFF has 7 councillors present.
7 councillors, so 1 sharing as well. Okay, thank you. If you just give the name on the iron box.
It's Councillor Cynthia Mdleleni.
Thank you.
Also, okay, fine. We'll come later with that.
All right. Thank you very much. So that deals with the registration and the number of councillors present. Okay, councillors, I'd also like to use this opportunity to congratulate Rob Quintus on his position as the Mako member transport. He's got very big shoes to fill, but never mind. Well done, councillor. Then I also want to point out that today's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube for the public, and I welcome all members of the public who are listening in to this meeting. Please continue to do so going forward. I also want to remind councillors about their timekeeping. We did discuss it previously. So please try and keep to your time. It's not nice that I have to cut you off, but I do have to manage the meeting. And then finally, to point out to all councillors that our meeting is not conducted in the iron box. So we have one meeting. If there's a point of order, we will deal with it through the iron box, but we are not dealing with the debate in the iron box. So now we're going to move on to the official notices. City Manager, the official notices.
Speaker.
Councillor Dwano, wait a minute.
Yes, thanks, Speaker. Just for the record, Speaker, just for us to know that from now on, when we want to pose questions to the...
Councillor, we'll discuss that at the programming committee.
No, Speaker, no, Speaker. We just want to know that now there's only 5 people. There's only 5 people that will pose to like the Speaker.
It's in the rules of order, Councillor Dwani. This is not the place for this debate. Okay? We'll discuss it in the programming committee if you don't understand it, but we'll go over it again. City Manager, any...
Speaker?
No official notices, Speaker.
No official notices. All right, thank
Speaker?
you very much. We're going to move on to the
Speaker?
minutes of the previous meeting.
Speaker? Speaker?
Councillor Satoshi?
Yes, I indicated on the IM box because the question that you have addressed was raised by me to you before the start of the meeting. And you said you are going to deal with it later. It seems to me now you are ignoring it.
No,
because-
Councillor.
No, just wait. You just said,
Alderman Satoshi, the public have been welcome to the meeting via YouTube. We are moving on to the minutes
yeah,
of the meeting.
Speaker, the issue that I wanted to check with you because...
Thank you very much. We're moving on to the minutes.
Speaker?
Councillors, page 5, page 6, page 7,
Speaker.
page 8. Are there any corrections to the minutes on those 4 pages?
Speaker. Councillor Ngubelanga here.
I'm dealing with the correction of the minutes.
Yes, Speaker. On
The
page
correct-
7. Yes, Speaker. It says I was absent without apology, but I submitted my leave and it was approved by the Office of the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Councillor. We will take note of that. Thank you. All right. Then moving on from page 8. We're moving on through to page 15. Any corrections? Page 16 to page 25. Any corrections? Page 25 to 35. Page 35 to 50. And then we go through to page 98. Any corrections? So with the correction of the presence or the leave of absence for Councillor Mbungani, we will correct the minutes. We've confirmed. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, EFF,
Councillor Dwani.
can we please correct, Madam Speaker, that Councillor Mandanda Bazandile was also present, and he's recorded absent on the minutes. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. You got it? Thank you. We've got that. Any other correction on the attendance?
Speaker, Councillor Dudley.
Councillor Dudley.
Madam Speaker, on page 98, the Potsdam Road Milnerton Riding Club, Milnerton Riding School issue was discussed, and it came to my attention that Councillor Adams actually had his speech documented and reported in the agenda. I unfortunately, when that was going on, I was having problems with connectivity, and I actually read about it. I would like to have my speech as well that I presented to Council at the last meeting in July to also be put in writing, please.
You need to email that to Neil Mosenmeyer, and we will follow up on that, Councillor. Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else now, Councillor, around the minutes? Councillor Visser, you wanted to say something? You were present. Yeah. All right. Thank you. We'll take note of that. All right. So now we're going to move on. Councillor Matanzima. The item is agreed. Okay. Thank you. You were recorded as absent. We'll correct that as well. All right. Can we then move on to the recommendations? Okay, so we're going to move on to recommendations, and I want to point out that items 22 and 23 are noted. And then the councillors, there are now 202 councillors present in the meeting. And so we'll take the count of those councillors present to indicate the support for the items. Is that in order? Thank you. So we move on to the remainder of the agenda, commencing with volume 2. And we'll start with item 4. Can we start with Councillor Reyes, please? Councillor Reyes? He's unmuted. Councillor Reyes, are you available?
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Speaker. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, carry on.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, today we'll be dealing with item number C4. And the primary reason for the recommendation to adopt an August 21 adjustment budget is the rollover of carryover commitments from the 2020-21 financial year. It is therefore recommended that in terms of Section 28 of the MFMA Act of 2003, the Council adopts the amendments proposed in cooperation into the 2021-22 adjustment budget, and our Mayor alluded to that as contained in Annex A to the report on this agenda, which I see our colleagues have gone through and spent some time familiarizing themselves to that. Ongoing contractually committed projects funded from the national and provincial allocations for which approval of unspent 2020-21 budgetary allocations is awaited be continued by interim funding from internal resources until the outcome of such rollover application is appropriated into the 2021-22 budget via the January 22 allocations budget. And furthermore, Madam Speaker, an amount of 37.1 million rand from accumulated surpluses be set on an amount of 31.7 million rand from accumulated surpluses to be set aside to establish a capital replacement reserve, capital grants and donations rollovers, which will be used to provisionally fund contractually committed, and that's going to be the emphasis, Madam Chair, these funds are committed, ongoing conditional grant-funded projects until the national and provincial rollovers are appropriated into the 21-22 budget via the January budget. Furthermore, in the event of specific conditional grant-funded project rollovers not being approved by national and provincial treasury, the city continues funding such projects which are contractually committed from the capital replacement reserve, capital grants and donation rollovers. These rollovers, however, are attributable to the following. And thanks to our Mayor once again who alluded to these, and the COVID-19 pandemic and associated lockdown regulations resulted in delayed implementation of this project, and we're all aware of that. Furthermore, violence in some communities in some areas also resulted in institutions not being closed for extended periods of time. More so, memorandum of understandings and acceptance being signed late due to additional requirements by the National Skills Fund. Also, some service providers not having the full capacity to deliver on these services. And I think with the space that we're in with COVID and the complications thereof, the list can go on in terms of mitigating and attributable reasons why these things happened. The world that we become accustomed to, Madam Speaker, has changed. This is the harsh reality. This reality demands from all of us a new paradigm. And as I move towards the closure, Madam Speaker, taking into consideration the reasons listed herein, as well as in the detail in the report referred to in Annex A, which we all have accustomed to, it is recommended that this Council approves an adjustment budget. I so move, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we have Councillor Sakati, please? Just to point out, the ANC's climbed to 51 now. Thank you. Councillor Sakati. So Councillor Sakati does not appear to be present. I'm going to move on to Councillor Mufusi.
Good morning, Speaker. Good morning, Mayor and all councillors present, the media and all guests, all protocol observed. Speaker, as the ANC, we are totally against this adjustment budget. Our understanding of an adjustment budget is that it should be in line as prescribed in the Municipal Finance Management Act and should be taking place at the end of a financial year. While the month of August is not even near our financial year, we have an adjustment budget which speaks to projects in human settlement, transport, community services, and other departments that was not completed due to a lack of performance and service delivery that should be in line with the law. I want to speak to the non-performance in the Human Settlements Directorate by project managers who earns bloated decent salaries. We were told in one of our PC meetings that is the upgrade of the flats in Langa are completed, and look here on page 17, the lines that are being conveyed to us, and therefore we are very clear where we as the insistence with regard to this adjustment budget. It tells us clearly that the DA administration is clearly not having their eye on the ball in terms of the spend of the budget for services to be delivered as the government closest to the people. The additional information that we received this morning at 5 to 9 is totally unacceptable. They are symptomatic of a government that does not care. Services in our poor communities are abruptly stopped by this racist government. Drains are spilling, sanitation. Our townships are full of potholes. Speaker, as I conclude, the fact that we blame everything that the J government failed to deliver to COVID-19 pandemic is a cause for concern. It is disingenuous and unacceptable. Lives have short legs, Speaker. We do not agree with this adjustment budget in the extreme, Speaker. I thank you very much.
Councillor Dambuza. Councillor Dambuza.
Hi, Speaker. Councillor Dambuza is still struggling to like yes, to be unmuted.
He's unmuted on our side. Otherwise, see if there's another computer he can talk through.
He's not in chamber, Speaker.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, he's not with us, but as soon as he's sorted that side, then he will have to come in.
We'll come back to him. Councillor Botha-Rousseau.
Good morning, Speaker, colleagues, and the Mayor as well. Speaker, on page 119 and 120 of the adjustment budget, I noted that an amount of 7,578,848 rand under social development and ECD funds will be utilized to pay for mayoral art collection, where orders were not placed and delivered before 30 June. In the newspaper, it was mentioned, in the burger during the week, that the funds will be used for the upgrade of a part of the city hall. Speaker, what I want to bring under the council's attention, we can't take money from the poorest of the poor to upgrade a part of a city hall. Not even the poorest of the poor will have the opportunity to visit the city hall. And that, Speaker, is why we do have all the protest actions in Cape Town, because we are robbing the poorest of the poor from funds that can better their lives. So really, Speaker, I can't approve this adjustment budget if we try to rob the poorest of the poor. I thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sakati.
Good morning, Speaker, and good morning, councillors. Can you hear me, Speaker?
Yes, I can hear you.
My apologies for the delays. I just experienced some technical problems with my PC. I'm now with Councillor John. Mr. Speaker, the recommendation in front of us is about adjustment budget in terms of section 28 of the MFMA, which requires the Council to adopt amendments proposed for incorporation into the 2021 adjustment budget. Mr. Speaker, before I even go to the recommendations of the budget, I must say it from the onset that this current adjustment budget is a bit weird and different to all the adjustment budgets that we've actually been using. Because in the capital grants and donations, the initial document indicated that we are not, they indicated an amount of 0, that we are not adjusting those capital grants and donations. The emphasis here is around the CRR, which is your capital replacement reserve, which is about 79.6 million. And what is even more surprising, we have got in the EFF, which is borrowed funding, Madam Speaker, which is just less than 500 million rand, which is 425, and then the revenue, which is about 8. No, what we're then saying is the ANC, before we even go to this recommendation, whether do we accept or not accept the budget, is that when you look into this current adjustment budget, the capital budget amounts to about 513 million rand, which is over, which is just above the billion rand from the capital. And major culprits as far as this adjustment budget is concerned are all well known, starting with transport and many other departments. And I know that my colleagues that will be speaking after me will be able to reflect in terms of the details of what is happening in each and every particular department. But Madam Speaker, all that we're saying is in ANC is that it's going to be difficult for us to support this kind of proposal that is actually coming from the department. Let me just start with one proposal that begins to say that an amount of 3.71 million from CRR is going to be set aside for provisional use on the projects while awaiting approval. When we are saying that we are going to use your capital replacement reserve, what does it say for the future of this city? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. Are we doing this because we know that we're coming to an end and we're very much uncertain as whether the DA is going to come back as an administration in this city? It is on those bases that as the African National Congress, we cannot say. But the last recommendation, which is also bizarre, is that in the event that these rollovers are not going to be approved by the National or Provincial Treasury, the city will continue to use the capital replacement reserve. In fact, the original amount that is within the capital replacement reserve is not that 37.1 million, it is about 79.6 million rand. And we cannot agree on that one. Rollovers generally are,
Councillor?
As an ANC, we always view rollovers as a service delivery delayed, and using the CRR as a way to curb.
Thank you. Councillor Boy?
Mr. Speaker?
I'm listening.
Cutting me off. I'm just finishing up my speech and you are cutting me off. Can you just allow me 1 minute?
No, Councillor.
We are not supporting this adjustment budget.
If I allow you 1 minute, it's 30%
We are not supporting this adjustment budget.
I understand it. Thank you. Councillor Boy? All right, Councillor Boy, if you're not available, Councillor Siseko?
Madam Speaker, can you hear me?
Yes, continue.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning. On page 12 of this agenda is a very clear intention and purpose of this adjustment budget. And it says, and I quote, the primary reason for the recommendation to adopt an August 2021 adjustment budget is the rollover of carry-over commitments from the 2020-2021 financial year. And the key word here, Madam Speaker, is committed, because indeed those projects are contractually committed. Madam Speaker, the DA-run City of Cape Town is a well-run metropolitan in South Africa, and that has not happened neither by accident nor corruption. It happened and continued to happen because DA good governance is what distinguishes us from the faded Ramaphoria captured ANC. As the well-run city, some of our capital projects are multi-year programs in nature for a purpose of continuous provision of service delivery and stimulation of our local economy. In this city, Madam Speaker, we stimulate, we drive, we encourage local economy with our capital program. While in metros like Durban and Johannesburg, ANC RET forces led by corrupt Colney House Ace Magashula and disgraced former Durban Mayor Zandile Gumede, they capture, they steal, they inflate prices, and they loot their local economy. As we have seen recently in the name of one man from Kandla, Jacob Gedlehlekisa Zuma. Some of our multi-year capital program funds need to be shifted. And did you get that, Madam Speaker? I said shifted, not shoved into Dr. Mkize's bank account. No, because they are committed. Due to reason unforeseen, these funds could not be spent, and I ask that this council approve the rollover so that service delivery, which DA is known for, proceed. Madam Speaker, both national and provincial treasury requires that we submit our application for rollover by end of August, and the response shall come end of November. However, service delivery must happen. The well-run city makes provision from its internal source funds to fund the continuation of service delivery. That is the DA difference, because DA delivers. Madam Speaker, in this adjustment budget, it is so sad that the ANC incompetent national government entity, National Skills Fund, which is tasked to fund skills youth development, could delay the 9.4 million rand fund for a mere memorandum of agreement, which was signed late due to National Skills Fund shifting of goalposts. This fund is desperately needed by unemployed youth that they need the training and job placement. This shows how uncaring ANC about youth unemployment is. And why am I not surprised, Madam Speaker? Because ANC has still have grandfather youth like Fikile Mbalula, Malusi Gigaba, Thandima Mbehlala. What did I expect from the youth of 1652? Madam Speaker, all the departments in the city of Cape Town have been affected in one way or the other by COVID-19.
Councillor, conclude.
And therefore, the rollovers reasons make sense. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I want to say
Councillor, your time is up.
Oh, I move the recommendation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Councillor Dambuza.
George,
is he available? Okay, Councillor Dambuza. All right, let's move to Councillor.
I think I'm still not succeeding. However, let me officially record that the EFF is not in support of this adjustment, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Dwani.
Councillor Tambuza is still struggling to connect, Speaker, however.
Thank you, Councillor Dwani. Councillor Boy.
Good morning, Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me, Speaker?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. I won't take much of the time. I just want to move for the recommendations, but I also want to highlight two things, Speaker. One of the issues that I want to highlight is a project that you know very well that is within the area that you stay in, which is the Dido Valley. And I think one of the ANC councillors once raised issues around this. We have a rollover of more than 7.3 million rands, and that rollover has been approved. For us, that is a historic project because it is doing redress for people who have been dispossessed in the past. So there was no way that we can allow that project not to proceed. Also in Badale, we have a rollover of more than 3 million rands. It's a project that we need to complete. In Kailicha, we've got a rollover of projects that are more than 4 million rands. So also, Speaker, I want to correct the notion that was presented here that the Langa Hostels program for rehabilitation and upgrade is complete. That is untrue. We are in that program, and that program is going to take us more than 8 years. Thank you so much, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Badela.
Am I audible, Speaker?
Yes, continue.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Speaker. Let us not entertain Judas Iscariot. He's trying his best to make ANC look bad. Mr. Speaker, today we are dealing with Section 28 of Municipality Management Act of Act 52 of 2003. Budget Adjustment 21-2022. In Chapter 16 of the report, for instance, we are told that amendments will have no detriment impact on the provision of basic service. National and provincial grants are unspent year in, year out, more especially in the light department called transport. We as ANC know for the fact that these funds may not be given back or approved as the same amounts of rollovers. The national and provincial government have also picked up this unutilized of grants continuous perpetually in the city of Cape Town. We are concerned about this rollover in the Department of Transport, over 46.2 million of all projects, actually playing with our feelings as we are service delivery driven. We know for the fact that this project outlined in the table is just a decoy. Every time when you talk about the road rehabilitations in our areas, the excuse is gangsterism in Bishop Levis, Hanover Park, Pontyville, and Gugulethu. They are coming since the inception of local government. Even in 2014, we as ANC suggested the relief of the congestion relief of the main road. To date, nothing has happened. Surprisingly, in the list, the ANC also included the committee, and it was immediately attended to. Madam Speaker, we are still experiencing traffic congestion in Case River. Kailicha, nothing has happened to ease the burden of congestion. For instance, Site C is the largest public transport interchange in the metro. To date, there is no development, but we continue unabated to have rollovers in the Directorate of Transport. Madam Speaker, as an ANC, we are watching out on the misuse of IRT Phase 2 as a leverage for electioneering. We know about your shenanigans as the DA administration and your capabilities thereof. What is surprising the most this time around, DA administration indirectly also admit that they are misusing the legislation, which is Section 28.
Please.
They are even jumping to use CRR funds. Nothing is urgent here, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, Chair, we are also not supporting.
Thank you. Councillor Satoshi. Alderman Satoshi.
Can you hear me, Speaker?
We can hear you. Carry on. Thank you.
I am going to time myself because I have realized that you have become something else, but I will deal with that later. Let me first also follow a suit and welcoming Councillor Quintas on his new responsibility. I am not so sure about the big shoes that you spoke about earlier, and I would really request that you stop flattering yourself, because we all know the disaster in that Department of Transport, where a MECO member happens to lead that department. That MECO member is yourself, Madam Speaker. We know the facts are there. Councillor Quintas is going to create his new own legacy, because the legacy that is inherited he has inherited. It's a disaster. Let's hope for change in that transport department. Let me move on. We are requested today to appropriate over 510 13 million rands using Section 28 of the Municipal Systems, of the Municipal Finance Management Act. We are also being misled in this council that the appropriation of these funds is as a result of unforeseen circumstances, which is absolutely twack. Madam Speaker, these programs that your MACO members are talking about are not new programs. These programs are coming a long way. In fact, these programs, some of them, were supposed to be completed long ago in the previous financial years. But because of the DA administration that fails to plan, and we find ourselves in this situation. Now, what is interesting about this debate of today, which I think Councillor Tembelani Sakati has also indicated, you are actually preempting the decision of the National Treasury in terms of approving your application of about rollovers. You are saying to us, no, let us not wait for National Treasury. We do have money in reserves. Let's go ahead and take that money. In the event that Treasury does not approve these rollovers, anyway, we will go ahead. Meaning that we are showing Treasury a middle finger. And I'm saying here, Madam Speaker, I am very, very worried, and I want to put it on record that this thing is going to come back and haunt us when AG audits the financial expenditures of the city of Cape Town. We are going to be called, the incoming administration will be called to come and account for this reckless decision that the DA is about to take today. As I conclude, I do not think any reasonable person can entertain Councillor Siseko Mbandezi, who sold his community for a piece of cake in the DA. So we do not know what Councillor Siseko Mbandezi represents. All what he represents what Judas Iscariot represents then when he sold out Jesus Christ. Madam Speaker, we want to get the details of the 79 million rands. Don't tell us only about the 37 million rands that is going to be taken from the CRR. What is going to happen to the remainder of the money? And I think the councillor from the FFF Plus is correct. We must know what is going on in that arts collection program of the mayor. Can we organize the public to go and view that so that at least we know what is the money of the public is used for? And I can tell you right now, Madam Speaker, no reasonable administration can take this kind of a reckless decision when the country is going under difficult circumstances, and yet you have a situation where we take over 7 million rands and then we donate that 7.5 million rands for art collection for the mayor. It doesn't make sense. And I think if I were the mayor of the city of Cape Town, I would have refused this kind of a report, noting the situation that the country is going through. So the African National Congress does not support this kind of a reckless approach, and I think we shall await for the indication also in terms of the rollovers from the National Treasury. If you want to go ahead and bulldoze with your numbers, go ahead, put us on record that we do not support this. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sakati, your point of clarity, please. Only at the end of the debate. It's at the end of the debate, so we'll wait till the end of the debate. Thank you.
Yes, I will. Okay.
Okay. Alderman Nielsen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the Mayor has tabled this adjustment budget, and my colleagues, Councillors Reyes and Mbandezi, have, I think, elucidated quite a detail on what it covers. I would also like to draw your attention to the additional addendum which was circulated this morning. The background to this addendum, Madam Speaker, is that the provincial government have this week approved the rollovers of the HSDG funding for the people housing process.
And so therefore, Madam Speaker, we want to incorporate that 26.3 million rand into this budget, that's this rollover immediately, and not have to wait until January to do so. Now, Madam Speaker, a lot of the councillors, particularly ANC councillors, have made a number of comments which I believe are misleading about what is being proposed here today. First of all, let me address the issue of the interim funding that we are making available to cover the rollover of grant funding. Now, Madam Speaker, you know, grant funding rollover approval only comes through in November, normally after the national government have their mid-year adjustment budget. So in the meantime, Madam Speaker, we have contracts that are awarded, they are running, they have been running, you know, and most of it has been spent before the end of the financial year. If, Madam Speaker, we have to wait till November, then you must imagine what disaster that means for these contracts and for those contractors. We've got to then suspend all work on those contracts. There are costs that will then be incurred in order to do so. So, Madam Speaker, you know, even if it is a case, let's take the worst case scenario that the National Treasury does not approve the rollovers. The fact is that the city has contracts in place and it has work that is incomplete and it needs to be completed. So we would have to, in any event, then use our own funds in order to complete those contracts. So this is, I believe, this rather than what Councillor Satashi says is reckless, this is anything but reckless. This is the opposite. We are taking proactive steps to ensure smooth completion of these contracts and not have to wait until this long delayed process at national. I mean, just look here. Here we have the provincial government approved the rollover now, but we have to wait for the national one only in November. So rather than being reckless, this is actually good governance. We have already done it for several years now, and the Auditor General has not found any fault with that at all, because in fact what we are doing is ensuring that there is funding. We have shown that this is affordable, that the city is able to do so because it has the funds available to cover those costs. And the point is, yes, 500 million rand is a big sum. We have no doubt on that. But given, Madam Speaker, that is less than 10% of last year's capital budget, indicates that our capital spend, which was around 90% of the budget, was in fact very well spent last year. So the amounts, when you look at the detail, you'll see it's small amounts on most projects that have to be rolled over and be completed within hopefully a month or so. And therefore, Madam Speaker, these in the big scheme of things, these are not very large amounts because I say it is less than 10% of that budget that is being rolled over. Now, the comments around the City Hall, we have already clarified that this is not about buying new art. This is about City Hall upgrades. And well, I'm just going to differ with the colleagues and say, the City Hall is one of our heritage properties. We have quite a number of heritage properties. It is important that we continuously maintain these properties on an ongoing basis, because if you don't continuously do that, you get to a point where these properties start falling apart. So I think all the expenditure on those properties is fully justified, and the amounts that are being spent remain small relative to an 8 billion rand budget. So, Madam Speaker, then the Mayor, having tabled this budget, adjustment budget, My colleagues having also moved that, I propose, Madam Speaker, that Council adopt the adjustment budget. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And that is the adjustment budget with the additional recommendation on item. Thank you very much. Okay, the point of clarity, Councillor Sakati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to say for the record that what we have been given here
I want the point of clarity, the speech.
In terms of the funding.
Right, okay, that's not a point of clarity.
Is that you find that the
I'd like to now allow the Mayor an opportunity to conclude so that we can then do the vote.
Yeah, Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. Just a short
Speaker, the
from my
clarity
side.
from Councillor Sotashe was a speaker on the item. Check the inbox.
point of clarity.
Just, Mr. Mayor, just hang on a second.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, can you allow me for a point of clarity, please?
But the point of clarity needs to be a point as raised in the debate, not a new item or a speech. It needs to be a point of clarity on something someone spoke.
Can you allow me a point of clarity?
Give me the point of clarity.
Clarity is, one, if the National Treasury does not approve those rollovers, do we have enough money in the reserve? Yeah. The projects that are currently on operation are going to be funded. That's the point of clarity.
Councillor, the Deputy Mayor.
That's the point of clarity.
Councillor, you
that I wanted to check.
Just,
Madam Speaker, the answer is yes, we do have enough money. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, please.
All right, can we now conclude this debate? It's over. The Mayor, you may finalise the item.
Honourable Speaker, thank you.
Speaker, I said that Councillor Sotashe, as a speaker of the item, also has a point of clarity to the Deputy Mayor before the Mayor concludes.
What is the item? What is the point of clarity?
Councillor Sotashe indicated in the inbox.
Yes, but
Speaker,
Councillor Sotashe, make your point of clarity, please.
Yes, I will. I think also you must continue to check the IM box. Speaker, the point of clarity is to the Deputy Mayor. During our debate right now, I've raised an issue about the 79 million rands that is taken from the reserves. And the emphasis on the report is around 37 million rands. What is happening with the rest of that money? Because we do not get a report on that. Can the Deputy Mayor take us into confidence the remainder of that 79 million rand? What is going to happen to it?
Councillor, it is in the item, but the Deputy Mayor may respond for clarity for you.
Yes, Madam Speaker. So, you know, the 79 million is the total coming from that, but only part of that is going towards backing interim funding for the grant-funded rollovers. The rest is normal provision for rollover. And so, in the issue in the end, Madam Speaker, is that all of these projects were fully funded in the previous budget last year. We are rolling that over. We have shown in this document that they remain funded. The budget as a whole remains funded, even if that grant funding was not rolled over. So, Madam Speaker, the budget as a whole remains funded.
Thank you. Yes, that was quite clear in the report. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you may conclude.
Yeah, Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. I just want to get some misunderstandings out of the way with regard to this adjustment budget today. The misunderstanding of what this budget is all about. And I think on page 12 it is quite clear. And I cannot understand why senior members of political parties can't read it correctly and understand it correctly. We are dealing with unspent 2020-2021 budgetary allocations, unspent funds mainly. It is rollover of carryover commitments we are making. And that is why I want once again to say to leadership, make sure you understand page 12. The normal, and that is the other portion of the misunderstanding we need to clarify and get out of the way. The normal other adjustment period we are used to as council. That is coming during the, and Deputy Mayor said it correctly, during the November, December, January budget adjustment budgetary period. There we were talking about channeling of funds to departments like housing and road transport, roads, etc., etc. For final approval, the end of January, beginning February council meeting, ahead of the May-June next full budgetary period of council. So that is how the cycle are working. And the issue with regard to the arts collection is definitely not here today to say, Councillor Botha, we are going to buy art for the mayor's arts collection. It got to do, and this item was already approved last year during the 2020 budgetary period. It's again unspent, rolled over for spending now up to the next budgetary process. That is how it is working. And I also cannot understand why our councillors cannot understand that as well. With regard to the City Hall, we take visitors to the City Hall, we take international guests to the City Hall, and the City Hall is falling apart. We must upgrade that City Hall. And if we are not going to do that, councillors will say, the City Hall deteriorates right under our eyes, and we have done nothing about that. We need a respectable City Hall, and that is what we are going to do. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. That closes the debate on the item. The adjustment budget recommendations are on page 1. Councillors, this item is an adjustment budget and requires to have majority support, and therefore we need to note that the PAC is now in on the meeting, and there's one member from the PAC. We have 51 ANC, 135 DA, 2 ACDP, 2 Al Jamal, 1 AIC, 1 COPE, 1 DI, 1 Freedom Front Plus, 7 EFF, 1 PAC, and 1 UDM as well, with the 204 members in the House. So can I ask that we vote on this and take these numbers? The ANC and the EFF are not supporting the recommendation. From what I remember, the Freedom Front was not supporting the recommendation. Are there any other parties that do not want to support the recommendation?
Thank you, Speaker. ACDP speaking.
Patriotic Alliance, not supporting.
The ACDP do not support.
Also, UDM is not supporting.
Jamar doesn't, and UDM don't.
The DI don't.
The DI is not supporting.
Patriotic Alliance not supporting.
All right, so we'll
The DI does not support.
We noticed that. Thank you very much. And the PA is not supporting. Thank you. If there's anybody else that wants to put their vote against in the iron box, then we will take this matter as having carried. This includes, of course, the additional recommendation. So it's the entire item. Thank you very much. We move on then to item 5, which was agreed. So we can move on to item 6, and that is the review and amendment of the council resolution related to the approval of the MMFA Section 33 report for a tender. And can we have Councillor Nonkizana, please?
Sorry, Speaker.
Councillor Dwani?
Yes, Speaker. Before Councillor Chesney can just come in. Speaker, I just want to bring to your attention that in our last council meeting, we did agree that you will have someone who will assist you with the iron box. You are now falling behind with everything that is happening in that iron box.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Councillor, but I did point out that we are not conducting the meeting by the IM box. It is there specifically to record if there's a point of order or clarity. So we're moving on. Councillor Nonkizana, please. Councillor Nonkizana is not in the meeting, so can we go to Councillor Reader, please?
Can I speak on his behalf?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may, Councillor Makazi.
Thank you. The item before us today seeks a council approval to correct an administrative error in document which you put in correct numbers. We don't have fundamental disagreements with it, especially when you say there is no additional cost. However, we can't trust you completely because we anticipate you coming soon, asking for deviations, as it is your outstanding financial pit to pocket funds for your cronies. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you for that vote of confidence, Councillor. Councillor Reader, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Thank you. So item 6 is the review and the amendment of the council resolution relating to the approval of a Section 33 report for tender 207C. Madam Speaker, before I begin, I would just like to request that a correction be made. On page 198 of this item, right at the bottom, it refers to the decision taken in council on 18 January 2021. That's a typo and it should read 28 January 2021. Thank you. In the council meeting on the 28th of January 2021, we had the privilege of approving a 7-year contract with Budgetary Africa Services to provide professional engineering services for the planning, design and implementation of a new bulk outfall sewer and rehabilitation of the existing Montague Drive bulk sewer system. In order to proceed with Section 33 process was completed as required by the MFMA, as this term of the contract would exceed the 3-year budget cycle. The total cost of the agreement was stipulated as 29,981,710 rand, and the item remains the same. There are no new financial implications. The contract, even though it is just over 6 years, falls across 7 financial years, as is made clear in the 28 January 2021 item. It is for these reasons that we recommend on page 199 of today's item that the Council Resolution C10-121 taken on 28th of January be reviewed and amended to read as follows. The entire contract, exactly as it is, to be executed, incurring a financial obligation for 7 financial years and in the estimated amount of 29,981,710 rand, excluding VAT, as confirmed in the financial footnote attached to the report on the agenda, be approved. I so move.
Thank you. Any party against this recommendation? Then the item is carried. Thank you. Can we move on to item 7, Councillor Sakati?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning, carry on.
The item before us is about the appointment of members of the audit committee. We have 5 of the MMA, but unfortunately it did not adopt that. So I'm sure that we are now guided by your own wisdom of the state of Cape Town. It is recommended that 3 members of the 3 members should be added into the audit committee, which is Mr. Tom Block, Mr. Linda Nene, and Mr. Merton. We are concerned that the recommendation that is actually coming to us says nothing about the inclusion of women into this kind of audit committee. The fact that during the month of August, when we are supposed to be celebrating women, the DA administration is pushing 3 men to be serving into the audit committee. But over and above that, Chairperson, it can be that we have to take into consideration the task that the audit committee is actually tasked with. Mr. Mervyn Burton served in the audit committee, and now I don't see why we have to recite him back into the audit committee unless is very much closer to the DA and there are shenanigans that we're actually trying to do so that he is able to cover up some of the issues that we are actually pushing under the carpet so that the Auditor General cannot be able to audit you correctly in terms of how you perform, in terms of your own financial management. The ANC cannot support this, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As a city, we approve of recycling in principle, but moving on, Councillor Siseko.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the 3 recommended names to serve on the City of Cape Town APEC have gone through a process to prove their worth. They are being recommended based on skill sets, capacity, ability, and performance on the 2 returning members, that is Mr. Linda Nene and Mervyn Barton. We are fortunate that none of the recommended members have submitted their CV to the Gupta brothers prior their recommendation for appointment, which is what Councillor Sakati wants. Further, none of the members shall be directed by myself or the deputy mayor or the city manager or the mayor in performing this important task for the residents of the City of Cape Town. These members are highly educated individuals who had a proven record during the current term, those 2 that are returning, and Mr. Block, who had proven during the interview processes. This is what makes this great city of ours different. It's our proven independent process. It's our separation of state and the party. It's our absence of deployment committee, which what Councillor Sakati wants. And Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate these members that have proven beyond doubt that they are not captured, they are fit for purpose. And I wish to congratulate Mr. Mervyn for his appointment as the chair. And lastly, to say to Councillor Sakati, there are women in the audit committee. It's not that their cycle, gets the cycle of each member it is different. There are women. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I laughed when Alderman Kolani Sotashe Ronald said, if I was the mayor of Cape Town, and I asked myself, with 24%, how can you be a mayor? Only if you are dreaming. And also, I want to say it takes a well-trained Judas Iscariot to see a juvenile Judas like myself. I move the recommendation on page 215. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we have agreement on that? Are there any parties that are not in support of this item?
There's a point of clarity from Councillor Sakati.
The point of clarity, Councillor Sakati.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My point of clarity is to the Judas Iscariot. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mbandezi. I just want to check with regard to the appointment of women. Was there no capable woman that could have been appointed instead of these 3 men?
Councillor,
Yes.
that is
And
not a
secondly,
point of
my
clarity.
second question is, what does he think about the involvement? It's a point of clarity that Alderman Ian Nelson sat in the interviewing panel for those individuals. What does Siseko Mbandezi thinks about his political involvement in this issue? Those are my 2 clarity-seeking questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Speaker,
That is not a point of clarity.
Madam Speaker, I don't have.
Thank you. Can we move on?
My questions are not directed to you. They are directed.
I'm ruling that it's not a point of clarity. So
be partial, please.
Cut him. This is not a point of clarity. So those in favour, is everyone in favour, or do we have anyone who'd like their vote recorded against?
Not a point of clarity.
Vacancy is against. Anybody else?
You must record the.
Thank you. Then we'll take it.
Don't cut me.
Item is carried.
Record the ANC vote. Be patient. We warned you in the program.
We've recorded
Be
the
patient.
ANC vote again,
Yes.
and I'm asking if anybody else would like their vote recorded against. So the EFF wants their vote recorded against. Thank you, Councillor Dwani. Okay. So we're moving on. All right. Thank you. Then the vote is carried. We move on to item 8. Councillor Dwani. Councillor Dwani, item 8. Is Councillor Dwani available, or can we move on to Councillor Sakati? Okay, we're going to take Councillor Sakati. Councillor Dwani, if you can in the meantime find a computer that unmutes you. Councillor Sakati?
Madam Speaker, can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir. Councillor, are you going to talk?
I am done, Madam Speaker.
You're done. Thank you.
Said the ANC does not have a problem with the item.
Sorry, thank you. I didn't hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dwani, are you available yet? All right. Councillor Savant.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I move the item, the recommendation of this item 8. This item is very clear, Madam Speaker. It's very straightforward. It relates to the investments in the books of the old administrations prior to the formation of the City of Cape Town that needed to be written off. And this involved the new Republican Bank. This was also fully provided for at the time, but remained in the financial statements, awaiting possible or partial recovery from liquidators. The liquidators is now in this process and out of the final recoverable amount, and therefore there is no prospect of any further recovery to be made. So I move this item. I also just have a word of advice for the leader of the ANC in the House, talking about Judas. Might I remind him that he was supposed to break away from the ANC at the time, which was the right decision. He then opted to stay because they made him a leader. They made him the leader of the House and they also promised him to be the next chairperson of the Metro region. I want to say also that to Councillor Sotas and his cohorts that they must know that no amount of name calling will change the truth and the reality. I myself feel vindicated today about leaving the ANC in October 2008 after you voted in Zuma, a person that was already
Councillor, you've gone quiet. Councillor Savant.
Sorry, can I just repeat then? Councillor Sotas, I have no amount of name calling will change the truth and the reality. I myself feel vindicated about leaving the ANC in October 2008 after you and your cohorts voted in Zuma at the Polokwane conference. Activists like Bandezi and myself.
Whenever ANC councillors are out of the item, you always cut them. Why are you allowing Councillor Savant to go on and on and on something that is...
Councillor Makasi, he's within his time.
I'm using my time to
out of order, is not speaking to the item.
I'm telling you I'm giving you some advice.
For God's sake, cut him out.
I'm giving the ANC some advice how to conduct themselves.
We don't need your advice. For people that don't even vote for themselves in the wards, we don't need advice.
Yes, so activists like Bandenzi and myself realize that the ANC has lost its moral compass and prefer to enrich themselves, as acknowledged by the President Cyril Ramaphosa. We prefer to work towards the upliftment of our people and serve them. It is clear that the ANC is beyond repair and not interested in serving the people, but destroy this country. Keep on fighting amongst yourselves.
Thank you. We have a recommendation on page 233. The ANC has said that they support the item. Is there anybody against the item or... The EFF's against it. All right, we'll note that. Thank you very much, but the item is carried. We're moving on to item 9. Councillor Bazir.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Okay, good morning everyone present. Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, in agreeing with this item, we the ANC believe in culture because culture gives meaning to life for all of us. If we look at our South African history, the Khoisan, the Xhosas, the Zulus, the Pedis, and so I can go on, and not excluding all our cultural groups because we've got 11 languages within South Africa. But why must we go and belong to an organization outside of South Africa? Whilst we have, again, I emphasize 11 languages in our country, and it tells our story. I want to say that we know that the pandemic of COVID-19 have crippled the South African, and especially Cape Townian culture, like art, music, etc. So let's drive our own cultural societies. Thank you.
Councillor Nielsen, Alderman Nielsen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, Madam Speaker, we, as a city, we belong to quite a number of international organizations, but we have to be very careful about which ones we join because we could end up with belonging to a whole large number of them without much value. So we are very selective in who we join. I think this particular organization has good intentions, but I'm afraid it does not appear to be achieving very much. And we should rather focus our efforts on those like the C20 and C40, for example, that does achieve things. So, Madam Speaker, without much ado, I then move the recommendation that we do not rejoin this organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we all in favour of the recommendation on page 244? Thank you. We're going to move on then to item C10. Alderman Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this report is to comply with a commitment made in the Council's approved Cape Town Water Strategy. Secondly, to appoint an experienced, independent advisory panel to ensure that the projects, the water reuse scheme and desalination, is executed in a technologically appropriate, financially prudent, and in an environmentally sustainable manner. Also, to reach the stated goal for augmenting the Western Cape water supply system by at least 300 megalitres per day. Scientific evidence predicts that due to climate change and global warming, that droughts would occur more regularly and be more severe. It is therefore reasonable and a wise plan for such eventualities. It's time for a new way of thinking about water. It's time to see water as a finite resource. We are all custodians of water, and the city is the driver of change. Our goal is to make Cape Town a world-class city for our citizens. Water is the key to growth. We must secure our water future to get us there. It's time for a new approach, one that takes our water management into the next generation and ensures that it keeps flowing in the future for generations to come. We must make decisions that have community in mind. Everything the city does must help every citizen, especially the most vulnerable. Together, we can treat water as one resource with many sources that need to be secured at all stages. Together, we can give water a second life and share the prosperity. Together, we can make Cape Town a world-class city that leads the way in its approach to water technology and the prosperity of its citizens and the planet. The implementation of large-scale water reuse scheme, the so-called Fora New Water Scheme, and the desalination plant, in order to diversify the water resources supplying the city, was identified as a key component of the water strategy and forms part of the city's 10-year committed program. The anticipated cost for the Fora New Water Scheme, with a capacity of 100 megalitres per day, and of the proposed desalination plant with a capacity initially of 50 millilitres per day, is in the order of 1.9 billion and 2 billion respectively. It is imperative for the city to obtain expert advice and guidance during the planning, design, implementation, and the operation of these schemes. This report provides an overview of the need to establish an independent advisory panel for water reuse and desalination by entering into a memorandum of agreement with the Water Research Commission for the establishment and facilitation of the IAP.
Thank you. Councillor Kothy.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, on this item, the ANC would like to express our agreement in support on this item in terms of establishment of the independent advisory panel. The ANC support the panels for reuse of water and also the desalination plants in terms of the Water Reuse Commission. Speaker, our only concern is that we are spending 15 million rand in the next 3 years, as outlined in point number 4.5, and that's a concern for us in terms of spending so much money on a particular commission. Already, Alderman Justice referred to the new water scheme of 1.9 billion and also an additional 2 billion rand already spent. Speaker, but I also want to refer you to the city's approach during the 2018 Day Zero drought campaign, where we spent already millions of rand on the desalination plants, and then a year or two after that, we decommissioned those plants in Monmapisi and Swartklip. Sorry, my apologies. And there's also currently a court case around the waterfront desalination plants, which estimated about 50 million rand, where the contractor took the city to court. Speaker, I'm raising that particular point on the desalination plant because the residents that are currently paying for this desalination plants still has not received any assessments or feasibility on desalination plants. Speaker, water is a right, is already alluded to. Again, I want to refer you to the Day Zero in 2018. And currently our residents are paying a pipe levy or fixed basic charge on the accounts, and that is being increased on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis. Water reuse is reliable, cost-effective, and sustainable. Water reuse, I must also add, that is currently being used in the municipality of Beaufort West and also in Windhoek, for example, for the last 50 years. Speaker, although we agree to this item, water cuts are still an issue that our residents are facing on a daily basis. Our dam levels are full to capacity, but our residents are still facing water cuts in our areas, Speaker. So in conclusion, the ANC agree with this item, although we want to raise our concerns around the 50 million rand that we're spending in the next 3 years. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mazwi.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, the item before us, the EFF supports this item with the consent and the submission that this prioritizes our water crisis areas. The implementation of large water reuse scheme and plant in order to diversify the water resource supplying the city is very much needed. And the independent advisory panel for water reuse was identified as a key component of water strategy and forms of City of Cape Town for 10-year program. The City of Cape Town water sector really need large water reuse scheme, as we are in crisis of water cuts. Sometimes we do not have water at all, especially in our areas where we pay huge amount of water bills, but we sometimes go without water. As Speaker, in terms of Water Research Act number 34 of 1971, following a period of serious water shortage, and it was deemed to be a national importance to generate new knowledge to promote the country's water research. Furthermore, Speaker, our communities are growing every day, and they also need water as a basic service. We hope that this strategy will address all these issues regarding the water sector, and especially our informal settlements. Lastly, Speaker, we hope that this time the City of Cape Town, led by DA, will not repeat the same mistake by doing a limited research where it will be sooner irrelevant, like the water meters that were installed that are now being removed. Yes. We support, yes, Speaker, this item, and we plead to the House that to prioritize our areas, especially the black areas.
Councillor.
We are in crisis. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butcher-Rousseau.
Speaker, Freedom Front Plus is in support of this item, and this is also a very long overdue process, and I wish City of Cape Town and officials that will be involved in that good luck with this, and because we are really in need of this water committees. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Kasim.
Speaker, thank you very much. I'm always 99% in agreement with Alderman Justice, just 1% disagreement. And where is that disagreement? It's, as Councillor Koti says, spending 15 million rand or 16 million rands on advisors. Last night, I sent the mayor a list, a huge list of material that is available on desktop. And I wonder why we are not using desktop research to allow the officials in the directorate to be able to keep abreast of what is going on. Generally, it is the private sector that poaches people from government services because of want of skill. Now, when it comes to the City of Cape Town, we seem to be doing the opposite thing. Now, how is it possible that those who are working in the directorate are not the specialists that they should be? And why are they not keeping abreast of what is going on by making contacts with other cities, with other departments, in order to be able to access the kind of information that they want? And as I said, I've sent to the executive mayor a whole list of things that I got hold of in just one afternoon, which, if all of those were really assessed and accessed and put together, it could make a fantastic document to be able to guide us. But why do we really need to spend 16 million rands? What knowledge will they bring that we can't generate on our own in the city here? Something seems to me to be wrong. We know that in every university there is a philosophy of publish or perish. Why don't we adopt a similar philosophy for the City of Cape Town, where those who are experts when they were appointed to their posts remain experts and continue to collaborate with other experts as an ongoing thing, rather than looking for someone from the outside to bring this knowledge? So I am in total support of what is being proposed here, except that I would really like the mayor to ask, do we really need to spend 16 million to access that information? I can provide it much cheaper than that, in fact, for free. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ahmad.
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning. No, good afternoon. As you witness once again the request for approval for the said item C10. A few years ago, Al-Zamar was fighting the above said case tooth and nail, with the emphasis on airborne toxins destroying the said neighborhood known as the Kaka River. Al-Zamar went as far as meeting with Mayor Dan Plato and two top professors from Western Cape. We also sat around the table with the green scorpions as well as the blue scorpions I'm sure a lot of you are not even aware of these type of scorpions. Speaker, as our learned scholar, Councillor Kassim, has alluded to the fact that in a half a day, he accomplished and advised our fellow party leaders of so many sites where all the said information can be found, yet the City of Cape Town found it necessary to spend 15 million for free advice. Al-Jamaa has been doing extensive oversight at the plant and witnessed considerable improvement. However, as we said then, and we will still emphasize, all that our caring city is doing is creating more havoc. With the upliftment of the plant, all we are doing is allowing more feces in the system, which will allow more toxins within the Kak River and harm more humans and animals in the said neighborhood. Speaker, costs escalated 5 times before because of poor oversight by the city. The challenge to the mayor and the DA is, please itemize exactly what knowledge is being sought and add a cost to each item. Then, give us the qualifications of our officials and explain why they are so out of their depth that they need to be supported from outside. Al-Jamaa would once again request the city to review and rescind the 15 or 16 million and beg the City of Cape Town to for once listen and follow our proposal of 3 years ago. Build a pipeline that will allow the excess to run straight to our purification plants near the desalination plants we already have. Sea pollution of waterways and rivers is worse than climate change. Let us, as the City of Cape Town, put our money where our mouths are, the caring city. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Limburg.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the councillors for those who expressed their support for this item. To Councillor Cotti and some of the other councillors who are concerned about costs, I'm also concerned about costs, but I think it is important just to point out, Speaker, that bulk water augmentation or bulk water supply augmentation schemes is a competency that actually resides with the National Department of Water and Sanitation. Now, I don't think I need to delve into the state of that department, but the city took a decision based on our experience of the drought to invest in Cape Town's future and our economy, and therefore we took the decision to use municipal funds to invest in additional water supply in order to safeguard and protect both our current needs in terms of water supply as well as our future needs. If we were not to make that investment and if we were not to implement our new water program as set out in our water strategy, we may be at risk, Speaker, of future droughts, and with limited support from the National Department of Water and Sanitation, as we have seen in the past. So I agree, Speaker, that even though costs are concerned, there are so much more significant risks if the city doesn't take action in this space. Speaker, furthermore, just in terms of costs and transparency around how the funding will be allocated over the 3-year period, there is also a business plan, a work plan, as well as a payment schedule that lists deliverables with timelines for both the desalination and water reuse. Within the agenda today, Speaker, the 15 million rand will largely cover costs such as honorariums for panel members, professional fees that extend a broad range of experience as required to support work of the panel, as well as overall management and reporting functions. The memorandum of agreement that's set out in the council agenda will also make provision for auditing of projects, and the information and reports produced by the independent advisory panel will be shared to engender public confidence and trust in securing our water future through water reuse and desalination projects. I think an added benefit here, Speaker, which needs to be emphasized, is that the Water Research Commission will also be co-funding projects and research to support the entire sector. So other municipalities will also be benefiting from this partnership, not just the City of Cape Town. In the spirit of collaboration, which the city is truly committed to, and our drought experience has allowed us to build even stronger relationships with international cities and other organizations, and that work continues So I don't want an impression to be created that the city is not partnering, because we surely are, and we are sharing our experience with local cities within the country. In terms of desalination, Speaker, which Councillor Cotti raised, I do want to point out that the temporary desalination plants at Monwabisi and Strandfontein together produce 14 million litres of water per day during its 2-year operation. So there has been value for money to our residents, and we've used that experience to empower ourselves to take the next step in building large-scale water reuse plants, and this will be the first water reuse plant of its kind, and therefore the need for additional expertise as well as the permanent large-scale desalination plant. And in that, Speaker, I do want to congratulate the team for getting to this step of the process, and I would like to put forward and support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a point of clarity from Councillor Kasim.
Speaker, yeah, my point of clarity is this. I agree with everything, but don't you think, Alderman Limburg, that you should first look at all of the sites that I have recommended and get the directorate to utilize that information before we start spending the 16 million rand? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to respond, Alderman Limburg, now to that. Otherwise, we're going to take the vote.
I'm happy just to briefly respond, yes. Just to say, Speaker, that a significant amount of work is going into technical feasibility studies before we actually commence these large capital projects that will require massive investments over multiple financial years. And that is being shared as we go through different stage gates of these projects. So, Speaker, we are not rushing into this by any means. We are doing an intensive amount of work behind the scenes to ensure that we make decisions that are feasible and, most importantly, also affordable for the long run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everyone has indicated that they are in favour of the item. Can we move the recommendation on page 252? Thank you. Thank you. I want to point out that we have 2 more DA councillors which joined during the debate, and we are now on a total of 206 members in the House. Thank you. Now, councillors, if you could just pay attention, items C11, C12, C13 and C14 are all informal trading bylaws for Sub-Council 3, so we're going to do the debate together, although the votes will be recorded individually. So I'm going to ask Councillor Zondani to start, please.
Speaker, clarity.
Clarity.
If then the items are clustered, does it also include the minutes being added so that a person can then have ample time to speak on each item?
Well, Councillor, the items are the same item, so the principles are the same. So I should imagine I could give you each a couple of extra minutes, so we can give you 4 minutes as opposed to 2, but you don't need to say the same thing 4 times. So if that gives you some scope, then certainly you can have 4 minutes, Councillor Zondani.
I'm asking in the effect that when we concluded the WIPS meeting, the items were separated into 2 minutes each, and we then agreed this morning that they are going to be clustered. Now it means that as ANC we're supposed to have 8 minutes on the item. So we need to be clear how many minutes is Zondani having? Is he having 8, 6 or 4?
Okay. The Chief Whip indicates she did tell you you can have 8 minutes, so you can have 8 minutes. Thank you very much.
Right.
Councillor Zondani, you may commence.
Thank you, Speaker. Afternoon again, Speaker. You're correct. These items seem to carry the same content, but different ones. So they might need a different attention as well. Speaker, it's all about approval of informal trading plans. As an ANC, we would be very mischievous if we say no to this. But because this is what we've been striving for, and I think also we are guided by the City of Cape Town, which adopted an inclusive economic growth strategy. But however, Speaker, as we see Sub-Council 3 is having an economic festival here, we realize that maybe perhaps they overlook one to tick one box, which we'll try and explain as an ANC. And we hope that at the end they will agree with us and add it on the recommendation, Speaker. Speaker, on item C11, it talks about having 24 bays and 7 are still available. But however, before we say yes to this particular approval of the informal trading plan, Speaker, we have an informal trading bylaw, which is very clear on Section 8 about how you give out the permits. It is very clear, Speaker. It says you have to, which will capture, which the very same message captures the following items, which says there's a need to give preference to applicants that are historically disadvantaged individuals. And also, we need to give preference to unemployed applicants. In this city, we know, in the country, we know, unemployed people are youth, unemployed people are actually women, and you'll find a disabled minority at the end. So we would like to appeal as an ANC and say that these approval of informal trading plans need to capture that as part of the recommendations, because we don't have information of how many women or youth are already occupying those bays. But I think what we can be able to do now here is to secure what we know we have in front of us, informed by the bylaw itself that we set.
Councillor Zondani, we can't hear you. Councillor Zondani, just check you haven't muted yourself. Councillor Makazi, are you finished speaking to the item?
No, Speaker, I think he is having technical connections or
All right,
I'll check with him.
We'll give him a moment. Okay, let's move on to the next speaker, and we'll give Councillor Zondani some more minutes later because he's apparently been kicked out the meeting by the IT system. So let's move on to Councillor Dabazandile.
Sorry, Speaker.
Yes.
Councillor Dabazandile is still having technical glitches. However, I just want to note that
it is made it. Right, let him sort out his technical difficulties, and we'll go to Councillor Tom in the meantime, who's had a second speak.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, Councillor Dabazandile, you can go first.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Mandandabazandile. Madam Speaker, the EFF, which is to register in principle, its request for the approval of the informal trading plan in terms of the city of Cape Town. Informal trading by law for the area ward 107 in Parliament. I, however, want to make it clear that such an approval must avoid expensive, unnecessary rentals. And instead of such, it must be assist to those businesses financially through donation and other forms of monetary value. Due to lack of jobs and business opportunities, during these trying times of this pandemic, which found our people becoming even poorer, it is no secret that the people have taken it upon themselves for find ways of making ends meet and ensure that they put food on the table. The role of the city instance like this, it is to ensure that it makes the people to conduct their businesses able to boost the township economy and begin to provide jobs for our people in and out that area. My message, Madam Speaker, under the government of the DA, vula iminyango for abantu bakuthi uncede bangasokoliswa urhulumente we-DA. That is
open up the doors for our people so that the people do not get problems from the government of the DA.
Are you translating for me?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You
may carry on. Your time's up. Thank you, Councillor.
No, I'm finished. I'm finished, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor...
Speaker.
Who's that?
Speaker, Zonani here.
Oh, you're back, Councillor Zondani. All right, you may carry on.
Let me, before I carry on, Speaker, can you tell me, must I include all of them, club them together, speak once?
Yes, please.
Okay, then now.
Thank you, Councillor, for your cooperation.
Thank you, Speaker. For C11, Speaker, I was simply saying we agree as the ANC. All we are proposing is that we add another recommendation, J, to say the 7 of the 24 bays which are already existing available should be ring-fenced for women, youth, and people with disabilities, as informed by informal trading bylaws in terms of how we should go about reference. Should I move to the next item, Speaker?
Yes, carry on.
And then C12, Speaker. C12, Speaker, we have 4 bays there in Ward 5. We are happy. 3 are being occupied. 1 is available. Can that one as well, in this plan, be ring-fenced for either of the 3 sectors we've mentioned, the youth, the unemployed, the women, and the disabled? The reason, Speaker, is because we use these stalls. We go and buy in these bases over the weekends. You mainly see old people only dominating in these stalls, and you don't see young people. And we need to protect them by making sure we approve plans that talk to such. Speaker, let me move on the third one, C13, Speaker. I'm trying to save time. Ward 107 around Table View Parklands. It's all sub-council 3, this one here. Here, there are 25 opportunities created, Speaker, and 18 new opportunities, 25 opportunities created, 18 are still available. So we need to be able to say, let's agree to ring-fence a third of that 18 for women, youth, and people with disabilities. That doesn't mean they will not participate in another number, but I'm just simply saying that we secure a particular section of the number to say it's for this particular sector. So that's another recommendation we would like to add on item C13, informed as well by informal trading bylaw on how we should go about choosing preference. The last one, Speaker, C14, around Ward 113 in Kilani and Table View. In this particular site, Speaker, we have 31 bays for take. Already there are 18 opportunities, that is economic opportunities available for people to occupy the stalls and the bays. We are again silent here in terms of who must occupy this. And this is where you end up finding most of these bays being run and managed by pensioners only. We are saying, let's add another recommendation I to allow a ring fencing of that 18 opportunities to be available to women, youth, and people with disabilities. Not all of it, but to ring fence a third of it, just to keep the momentum as we said earlier on. I'm sure Councillor Joy Solomon will be happy also with that. It was show an oversight on their part when they were discussing how we finalize the plans. That's the ANC. We move in that direction, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zondani. Councillor Tom, do you still wish to speak to the item?
Speaker, it's one on behalf of the EFF. I think we have agreed, Speaker, that we will club all of these items.
Okay.
So Councillor Ndabazandile has recorded the official position of the EFF on the matter.
Right.
Therefore, Councillor Tom falls away.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reader, you've heard from Councillor Zondani. I'm not sure whether you can accommodate that at your sub-council level, not necessarily in the bylaw, but can you respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I can give my speech first.
Sure.
Thank you. The Informal Trading Department, as well as the councillors of the respective wards, have spent a lot of time engaging the communities and the stakeholders with regards to the amendment, and in the case of Ward 113, which is a new ward that was created this term, the creation of an informal trading plan. The hard lockdowns and continuous extensions of the national state of disaster by the ANC government have had a devastating effect on the economy. Poor decisions have left many South Africans destitute and without any prospect of a job. Many citizens have had their hours minimized, meaning significantly less income, whilst others have lost their jobs completely. Sadly, the ANC-led government has also not managed to assist those affected by the national government's poor decisions, and not even the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, who is supposed to be able to support citizens who find themselves in these circumstances, has been able to assist. SASSA has failed to implement the emergency grant and failed those who find themselves going to bed without food, as they've not been able to provide sufficient, if any, emergency food assistance. They even delayed pension and grant payouts at one point, and a delay of even a day or two can be detrimental to those who struggle to get by with the little that they receive. A delay of a few days could mean going to bed without food. It is only in the city of Cape Town that we have, regardless of the hurdles placed in front of us by national government, been able to nurture and foster economic growth. Driven by Alderman James Force and his directorate, the city has been pushing for an easing of the curfew, as this is having a detrimental effect on the hospitality and the tourism industry. Informal trading not only relies on local support, but it also relies heavily on the support of tourists to our city from within our country and from abroad. So a huge thank you to Alderman Force for writing to national government to urge it to reconsider the curfew at the benefit of our economy. Not only does the City of Cape Town have a plan, which is more than we can say for national government, but we provide an enormous amount of support to traders, small business owners and entrepreneurs. We have business hub teams going out onto the ground to interact directly with business owners and the entrepreneurs. We have Jobs Connect, which is the City of Cape Town's which is the City of Cape Town's work placement initiative that connects businesses, SMMEs to talent and provides work and training opportunities to job seekers across the city. The city's Job Connect Workforce Development Program has assisted over 30,000 unemployed residents with assessments and provided 11,644 training opportunities with 4,050 placed in jobs. Informal trading plans are just another way that the city is helping to protect traders and provide opportunities for residents to contribute to and benefit from a growing economy. Informal trading is a very important part of our economy in Cape Town, and not only provides residents in the city of Cape Town with the good economic opportunities they would not have had, but also provides affordable goods and services to locals who are also faced with economic pressures. The fifth largest employment sector in Cape Town is the informal sector. So it was with great pleasure that Sub-Council 3 presents the amended and new trading plans for wards 1, 5, 107 and 113, providing more opportunities for local residents than before and helping to ease the economic pressures experienced. We therefore request with much excitement the approval of the informal trading plans as set out in items C, 11, 12, 13 and 14. And Madam Speaker, with regards to Councillor Zondani and his suggestions, we have bylaws and regulations and policies which help us and guide us to protect all traders and all people seeking opportunities. And I think that is sufficient. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right. We have specific recommendations or amendments by Councillor Zondani, but we don't have it in writing, Councillor. So I'm going to move the recommendations. These are the informal trading plans in terms of the bylaw for item 11, 12, 13 and 14. Can we take them together? Councillor Zondani?
Speaker, which part, where are you now? I'm left behind.
So we have your amendments.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have them in writing, but the Councillor Reader did say that there are regulations in terms of the bylaw which accommodate how they can be used and taken up by different people. I'm sure that you can reach this sort of compromise at the sub-council level. So can we move adoption of the recommendations?
No, Speaker, you're talking two things, Speaker. You're saying I don't have it in writing.
Well, okay.
The understanding, Speaker, is that when we table it here, because of the kind of way we communicate, it gets captured on the other side by the department.
Councillor, that's fine. You've made a recommendation on item C11 that there's amendment that 7 or 8 of the bays are used for women and disabled and youth.
Yes.
So the point is, and you've made different recommendations for item 12 and different recommendations for item 13.
Yes.
And you did similar but different recommendations for item 14. So therefore, let's put all your amendments as you've tabled them to the meeting. Okay? Is the House in favour of the amendment of Councillor Zondani's? Can we have a show of hands? Or in actual fact, we'll do it by party, but if the parties can respond. Councillor Reader has said no, because it is not, those issues are accommodated already in the bylaw.
No, Speaker. No, Speaker, that would be unfair, Speaker.
All right, but we're voting on it now, Councillor
Yeah, then you can't refer to Councillor Reader, what she said. We're arguing that time.
So that's fine. We're voting on it. Please vote for your amendment or against your amendment. So the ANC is voting for the amendment. We have the DA has voted against the amendment, and the other parties, if they can indicate.
Alzama support the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I don't. So the DA don't need to all vote. We've got the position. Can we stop that now? We've got the ACDP.
Got the position of the EFF already.
I've got the position of the EFF. I've got the position of the ACDP. I've got COPE. So it's quite clear that the small parties are supporting Councillor Zondani, but the motion is not carried. The amendment is not carried. Okay. Now the substantive.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Dudley?
I would prefer to be known as an opposition party than a small party. Thank you. Yeah, you can laugh. You can laugh.
You're quite right. That's fine. Thank you. I will remember that. So the opposition parties are voting with Councillor Zondani. And if we look at the substantive motion now, all in favour?
The UDM supported.
The UDM supported the amendment or the main substantive motion?
Amendment.
Thank you. All right. So the main...
Speaker, can I close by saying that you can go on record. It's the first time that all opposition parties agree on one item. This should be an embarrassment to the DA.
Very significant day. Thank you, Councillor Zondani. We'll take note of that.
It's an embarrassment to DA.
Thank you. So the substantive motion is carried in all items C10 to C14. Moving on now, thank you, to item C15. Yeah, 11 to 14 is concluded. Item 15, the City of Cape Town Animal Keeping Policy. Councillor Kumeka.
Speaker, this item before us is an update to the 2005 policy for the keeping of animal and poultry in the City of Cape Town. The new revised policy aims to enhance the welfare and the anti-cruelty aspects of keeping animals in the city, as well as the environmental health aspects and concerns. Speaker, while this policy intention is in good spirit, it is unfortunate that it is animal keeping policy and it's itself mischievous, as the policy relates to dogs with no reference to other categories of animals. Speaker, having afforded sufficient time for public participation will have at least enhanced broadly the aspects of different categories of animals. This policy doesn't recognize lack of communal land for farming and animal keeping. Hence, it talks about dogs. Many urban agriculture projects involve raising animals for eggs, dairy, meat and honey. While fresh eggs, honey and other products can be some of the greatest pleasure of urban agriculture, they can also bring challenges with the neighbors who may not appreciate the sound and smell of the animals, or may be fearful of bees or allergic to bee stings. All our working class communities are faced with small scale farmers, particular animals production, due to lack of urban farming land. And this policy doesn't address that.
Conclude.
This review of 2005 policy for the keeping of animals and poultry barely drafted and does not recognize contribution and participation of the public, particularly those affected. Farmers in Fuleni, Kailicha, Atlantis, and many others are more struggling because of the same lack of urban results within our communities. So as the ANC, we move that this policy must be respected.
Thank you.
For
Councillor Matanzima, I just want to point out now that the mayor has left the meeting and the deputy mayor will be there in his place. Thank you. Councillor Matanzima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To all the women who lost the battle of COVID-19, the list is endless. I will specifically pay a tribute to Sergeant Moria Kutiza Lobato from our Safety and Security Training College, who has played a significant role into making sure that we are a safe city. To those who are survivors, you must never give up. Today is hard, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be a sunshine. Madam Speaker, allow me to give a synopsis about this animal bylaw policy. About this policy. And if I may, and let Councillor Dasa to switch it off. Since 2019, the City of Cape Town has undergone a comprehensive process of reviewing the policy, framework, and documents relating to the keeping of animals in the city. This review was necessary as the current policy and bylaw are updated, and there is a need to update the city's approach to the keeping of animals for an environmental health perspective as well as safety and animal welfare perspective. Since the approval of the current policy and bylaw, there have been multiple changes to environmental health regulations which need to be brought into animal keeping regulations and laws imposed by the city. There is also a need to strengthen animal welfare requirements when it comes to keeping both domestic pets and animals used for agricultural purposes. Given the lack of direction in this regard from both national and provincial government, the city has endeavored to fill this gap by highlighting the importance of animal care and welfare in the city by imposing a duty of care on all owners. Councillor Dasa?
You've gone off, Councillor. Check your mute.
If you allow me, Madam Speaker, can I then let Councillor Dasa to sweep it off?
All right, but you've only got a few seconds left. But let me just first go to Councillor Budgetary.
Okay.
Thank you, Speaker. At the moment, neighbourly living noise of barking is a common complaint in all sub-councils. I hope that the animal keeping policy will bring a change. People don't understand that barking is a communication tool between dogs, and people will always complain and keep law enforcement officials very busy. In earlier years, I remember that we had to register pet at municipalities, and I support the idea. The policy is not clear if there will be any cost involved in that, and that may have a negative effect if there's cost involved. On impounded animals, I foresee an outcry. The city do not have enough property even to house street people, and now they offer to house on the table is property to house impounded animals. What about animals that are supposed to be on leashes when owners walk them? A lot of attacks take place on beaches, and it is not only dangerous dogs that attack children and other dogs, but it's normally dogs that were not learned to socialize with other people and dogs. Euthanasia of impounded animals is a huge concern, and I quote, "In the case where the city is unable to reunite animals with their owners or find a suitable home for them, the city may euthanize these animals to reduce health and safety risk." And then they carry on like that. rather contract a welfare animal organization, a registered organization, to put such dogs or any animal up for adoption. We cannot trust officials with our dogs or animals without partnership with registered veterinarians and animal welfare organization. But I support the policy and will keep an eye on the others that I mentioned.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dasa, you have 45 seconds.
Speaker, am I audible?
You are audible. Carry on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Speaker. I'll be quick. The new animal keeping policy 2021 seeks to deal with a number of issues related to the keeping of animals as well as the safety and nuisance aspects. The policy introduces new positions regarding neighborly living to amicably resolve nuisance disputes, mandatory sterilization for all animals over the age of 6 months, unless otherwise permitted, to deal with stray and abandoned animals, dangerous animals, human muzzling, and the restriction of free and unsupervised movement of dangerous animals. The policy also emphasizes the importance of current practices surrounding registration, environmental health regulations, and the impoundment of animals. The city is taking a zero-tolerance approach towards animal cruelty. This policy, Speaker, has been developed with comprehensive input from the Cape Animal Welfare Forum and the Cape of Good Hope SPCA. The development of this policy, Speaker, has followed the policy development process of the city and has been transversal engagement. Public participation has been concluded and all comments have been considered and responded to. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. So we have the animal keeping policy for approval. All in favour, as per recommendation on page 457. The motion is carried. The recommendation is carried. Then we're moving on, thank you, to item C16, and that is the approval of funds to procure services for civil engineering, and the speakers are Councillor Golding.
Thank you, Speaker. I trust that I'm audible. As you've mentioned, item C16 speaks to the recommendation for approval of funds for the procurement of services for civil works, and that's in order to host the FIA Formula E World Championship in the budget year 2022-2023. As we note, recently, a few weeks ago, the FIA did announce that the city of Cape Town would be the new host city starting in 2023. For the very first time, a city in Africa will host this, and that is in March 2023. I think we're all aware, and we as the City of Cape Town and the councillors are proud of the fact that City of Cape Town has been recognized as the events capital of Africa. What this shows now is that the City of Cape Town is open for business. We actually need this now. Post-COVID or during COVID, the impact on our services, on our hospitality industry, on our tourism industry, on our retail industry, on supporting service industries and infrastructure sectors have been huge, with businesses shut down, impacted with lack of funds. What this gives us now is an opportunity to host a world-class event showcasing us as a green city and a smart city, with the program not just of racing, but education and events around that, which will feature education, e-mobility, introduction to electric vehicles, with a whole host of programs listed in these annexures. This comes as a huge benefit to the City of Cape Town, giving us approximately
conclude, Councillor.
A benefit of approximately 1.5 billion rand, based on what was seen in Hong Kong in 2017. This equals jobs, and this equals a growing city. I thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Satoshi.
Can you hear me, Speaker?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, I believe that I've got 6 minutes. I just want to confirm that.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me just time myself. Madam Speaker, I fully agree with Councillor Golding with his assertion in terms of the item before us. For all good and intent purposes, but let us be upfront. As African National Congress, we are not going to be part of thieving. During the apartheid days, you know, black people had to invent some technologies, and those technologies will be stolen and become the intellectual property of white people. And this item before us, it's exactly demonstrating that. The background of this item before us didn't start only in 2018. It goes back to 2007, when a group of black people here in Cape Town, some of them who happen to be former political prisoners, they came up with this idea of hosting the Grand Prix here in Cape Town. The DA administration did not see any need for the hosting of the Grand Prix here in Cape Town. And dismissing this group of black people, saying that the idea that they came up with is going to do a kind of a noise pollution. And now their property, their intellectual property has been stolen. There is an accusation that their intellectual property has been stolen. They have made their submissions to the city of Cape Town. They even had a meeting with the mayor. To their surprise, no communication was ever made to them in terms of how far they have gone in terms of this application. Now, we are told that this item that is before us has actually now been given to Rupert's companies. So we cannot, Madam Speaker, allow a situation where people think hard in their houses and come up with some progressive thinking, and somebody just take over the intellectual property. These are the accusations that the city of Cape Town must prove this group of people wrong. So with that, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we cannot agree. And secondly, I just want to say, Madam Speaker, that this item commits the incoming administration. I do not know what are the priorities of the incoming administration, because the budget that you are referring to here is 2022-2023, which the current administration will be way out. But we will deal with that at a later stage. Let me turn to what was raised earlier by Councillor Savant. I have a high respect, Madam Speaker, for Councillor Savant all these years. But since he decided to betray the aspirations of struggling people, I lost respect for him. And I'm sure I don't blame him. Maybe in his own imaginary world, he thought that some of us would leave the ANC. I think he was enjoying his wet dreams. I think he must be able to tell this council the reason why he left the ANC is not because of the election of President Zuma. He's lying. He knows exactly why he left the ANC. It's because he wanted the assurance from the ANC that he would become a councillor again when the age was against him. And we are still waiting for the checkbooks of the ANC that he left with. We hope that at some time he will bring back those checkbooks so he can keep enjoying himself in his wet dreams. What I think we are doing very good as ANC today, we are hitting the dogs and the owners will come out. And we are actually waiting for more from the DA, who have betrayed the Congress movement and decided to leave because they thought that there are greener pastures in the DA. And we want to warn the DA. The Judas Iscariots never stood for any principle. If you don't make them councillors in this incoming administration, you must not be surprised when they don't notice when they leave you. So these are the kind of political delinquents who are fishing around just to secure for their own future. These are the political delinquents who are just about their own selfish interest, not about principle, not about anything else. I want to say to Councillor Savant, please bring back the checkbooks of the African National Congress. We had to close the account of the ANC because we could not access, because the person who was the treasurer of the ANC left with the checkbooks of the African National Congress. So keep on dreaming on your wet dreams. And we are not going to entertain you as African National Congress. Through you, Madam Speaker, Councillor Savant is a national embarrassment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Haskin.
Speaker, thank you. In principle, the ACDP always supports the city's efforts to cement Cape Town's position as a world-class events destination, which it is. But we have several concerns that undermine our support for this particular proposal. For example, on page 490, we want to ask, has the Transport Directorate and Engineering Services Unit already proceeded with the implementation of civil works by the 1st of August 2021 expected deadline? And if so, on whose authority, since Council is only considering this item today? There is something very wrong with the system of delegations if the Mayor and the Special Events Committee in particular has the ability to commit the city to an event where the expenditure expected by the city has since escalated from the original 4 million to now tens of millions. Their initial commitment has already led to this escalation, and as you will see just now, it may not be the last. We see from the appendices that the Special Events Committee knew early on in the process that specific design criteria and safety standards set out by FIA meant allocating funds to costly civil works. But why did this not come to Council at the very early stage rather than so late in the process now? There are too many uncertainties about the delivery of benefits to the city and its ratepayers by holding this event. Many references to ifs and mays are used when Council should be demanding more certainty. We note that the projected My City revenue reduction on page 488 hasn't been estimated or quantified. The additional costs associated with external risk E on page 489 relating to, quoting, the impact of disruption of external service providers installing or maintaining underground services in affected areas are also not quantified and costs are not projected. We note on page 490 that the city is expected to start with the civil works before the event, before obligations and costs for both parties are agreed on. On page 586, we see that it contains a number of very valid questions posed by departmental officials about risks and costs, which we don't believe have been answered or the costs quantified in this report. Our legal department confirms compliance on page 493 in saying that the MOA must still be signed by both parties, but we believe this should be the other way around. The MOA should be finalized before civil works is started rather than the way it's occurring now. On page 491 of the report confirms that, if needed, some road upgrade projects around the city will be impacted by project substitution, meaning that communities that are disconnected from this event elsewhere in the city will have to wait a further year or 2 or 3 before the roads that they use every day will be upgraded, in preference for an event that will be held over 3 or 4 days once a year. This, we believe, is also the wrong priority. The report writer has quoted 2 different amounts. While we know what the amount is, we believe he should have, the report writer should have been more accurate when he reports to Council. On page 491, CapEx is quoted at some 6 million rand more than the quoted amount on page 492, the one being ex-VAT and the other one being including VAT. 44,805 versus 44,085 including VAT. Notwithstanding Annexure H, titled Undertakings by Parties, which says in summary that, quoting, the event organizer accepts that the city will not under any circumstances increase its contributions towards the event, but we note that the CFO's comments on page 501, where he calls for he mentions cost capping and deviation, which in English means that the CFO foresees the likelihood of cost escalations, and we share the CFO's fears. Council's automatic expectation in this instance ought to be that subsequent cost escalations are subjected to affordability considerations and must come to Council to decide before expenditure is incurred. Why is there no stated expectation that the MOA must be brought to Council for decision, rather than being left to the Special Events Committee or another body within the administration to decide? And lastly, we note that the 3 feasibility study objectives listed on page 513 have already failed in our minds. These are: 1, to have minimum impact on the city. The cost escalations are already 1. Require minimum construction work. This isn't minimum construction work. And have minimum disruption to general public and traffic. That is not going to be the case now during the construction phase of the civil works or during the events. The opposite seems to be clear and true in this report. So, Speaker, just to conclude with one sentence, given all these concerns, the ACDP is left with no choice but not to support this item. Thank you.
Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, COVID-19 dealt a serious blow to tourism in Cape Town. Motor racing, we know, has many fans in our city and our country. If the COVID situation improves by the end of the year, overseas fans will be attracted to Cape Town at a good time of the year. Speaker, there's a very interesting twist to the motor car race next year. It will be electric cars that will be on the circuit. The novelty value of that is very great. In order to host the event next year, the City of Cape Town is resorting to environment. Money that was budgeted for other purposes will now be directed for civil works. We are not criticizing that. However, what is going to happen to projects that are being suspended? Is there going to be any direct income accruing from the event to the City of Cape Town? I understand that the event is very likely going to be good for the GDP of Cape Town. If the COVID-19 situation improves greatly, we could get an influx of visitors. My question is whether the city is going to get a slice of the broadcasting rights revenue. My second question is, why is the city pitching the cost of the civil engineering works as a temporary thing? MACO member Alderman J.P. Smith knows how many Cape Townians are passionate about racing. The city could derive substantial income from creating a permanent circuit. After all, trees are going to be removed, the roads is going to be broadened, and many other changes are going to be made. If the city is in for a penny, it might as well be in for a pound. People of Cape Town will appreciate having a permanent track that can be secured from time to time to stage electric car racing. That is the future of car racing. If it is rated well, internationally approved electric cars could become an annual event or even biannual. Speaker, we don't just need to know about 2022. We need to have a picture of electric car racing in Cape Town for the foreseeable future. We can learn from 2022 and make improvements. Our view is that what happens next year is the beginning of what will continue for amateur racers as well as professionals. Please let us have the long view. I so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kassim.
Speaker, thank you very much. First, I wish heartily to congratulate Councillor Quintas on his appointment as MACO member for transport. With a golden voice such as his, he should have been a Shakespearean actor. The theatre's loss, however, is the city's gain. Having said that, I'm quite glad that Councillor Grant Haskin raised a number of issues that I would have liked to have raised, but since he's done so, I will skip that, and I'm sure we should be able to get some of the answers to the queries he made. I also agree with Councillor Ahmed that the money that is going to be directed towards this is going to be at the expense of some of the other projects. Now, what will happen to those projects and for what period of time will they be deferred? Having made that point, Speaker, I want to highlight the fact that COP26 will be meeting in Glasgow in November of this year. And its recommendations are going to go far further than COP21 in Paris. That is because the world has woken up with a very rude shock to a climate emergency that is causing destruction and havoc across the globe. Sadly, the governing party remains in continuous denial about the climate emergency. Against this backdrop of what COP26 is going to be asking countries and cities to do, an important event is scheduled to take place in March 2023 in Cape Town. The EPRI will be one that will give us a world audience and a huge opportunity to align our policies with new goals to tackle the climate emergency that the world leaders are going to set. I hope this opportunity will be seized. It will be a time, seriously, when the EPRI is going to be staged to heighten the hype around e-mobility. Every party will need to use the staging of the EPRI to convince citizens that it recognizes that climate emergency is here and that the city is ready to tackle it. Speaker, 25 cities in the world are already far on the road to e-mobility. Some of them are Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Weifang, Wuhan, Tokyo, Oslo, Bergen, Paris, London, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, and New York. Our city must show that it is also ready to join these cities leading the e-mobility revolution. With the world media descending on Cape Town, we could do many things to profile electric vehicles. We could, for example, invite electric motor manufacturers to use the unique opportunity in March 2023 to participate in an electric auto fair in the style of the Beijing International Automotive Exhibition, better known as Auto China. As Jaguar is partnering with eMovement to hold this event in March 2023, I'm sure it will be delighted to put its electric cars on show. That will be a great side dish to the EPRI. The mayor, whoever he is at that time, should also be using an electric car at the time. He should be making a bold statement in keeping with what COP26 is certainly going to pronounce. Uber, which is committing to going all electric by 2030, should be encouraged to arrange for electric taxis to allow to be done abundantly so that ordinary people can experience a ride in electric cars.
1 minute.
The city should also be racing ahead with the development of a policy on electric cars. Speaker, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to support it because I think it's going to bring enormous GDP value, as Councillor Ahmed pointed out. Remember, Tesla wanted to start its battery operations here in Cape Town. This might be the kind of opportunity for them to recognize that they should come to Cape Town. So I support it, and I hope some of the questions that were raised by Councillor Haskin and Councillor Ahmed will be answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Alderman Smith.
Good afternoon, Speaker, to all the colleagues. Good afternoon. Speaker, events are absolutely invaluable to Cape Town. They create billions of rands of economic development and thousands of jobs. As the events impact assessments show, the top 8 events create alone 3 billion rand of economic activity in our city. So they're really significant for us. I don't necessarily expect the ANC or their cohorts and sycophants to understand this, as their primary expertise lies in state capture, looting and destroying jobs in the economy. But the public do understand it, and they appreciate the steps we're taking today to ensure that we remain on the international stage and that we advertise that we are open for business and that we create jobs and prosperity where national government is failing, Speaker. The slow pace of the vaccination rollout by national government has meant that our country is opening later than many others with international events. And that therefore film shoots, tourism and events are falling behind, and we might even lose some of those to other cities. These are all critical industries to our city. Many of our events jobs in this city are at risk, and some have already been lost. So it's imperative that we get the events industry going again, and this is the perfect event to do that. Motor racing is an important scene in Cape Town and has many fans across the city. We will attract visitors and spectators from across the country and internationally. These visitors, Chair, will be spending a lot of money, much more money than if we took this little meager amount that we're investing and spent it directly on jobs in the city. We're investing 2 million rand for the services, 2 million rand for the events hosting, and some money for civils. Those civils are permanent improvements to that precinct. That precinct has not had a meaningful upgrade since 2009. It has hosted many events. It is due for a refresh and an upgrade as our primary events precinct in the city. But what this event will bring is hundreds of millions. So for a small leverage, we get a huge and possible and valuable outcome that creates more jobs and puts us back on that international stage, draws events companies back here. Because of this late opening up of our country, we are going to lose potentially some of our major events. And this is a great way to make sure that we remain relevant, Chair. To Councillor Kasim, I just want to say you have been heard, sir. The event already includes a massive e-mobility component with demonstrations and conferences. And of course, in terms of the other comments, Chair, SPEVCA only committed to the events costs. So the delegations clearly says who can do what. The Roads and Transport Line Department is making its own commitments to the civil cost. And that is a result of an integrated conversation between all the stakeholders in the city. And of course, this item couldn't come to council until the clarity on the costs and requirements could clearly be spelled out. We have been in workshops with the community, and the CBOs, community-based organizations, have been very supportive. And I think, Speaker, unfortunately, Councillor Haskin does not appreciate the dynamic discussions that the events office have to undertake to make these events possible, because there's a lot of moving parts and it's a swift moving conversation and it changes, especially in a competitive space when we compete with other cities for the same events and against a backdrop of a lockdown that is continuously extended, that has made it very difficult to know when we would be hosting this event. Speaker, the events have a huge impact on communities, on our city's economy, but yes, they will also have an impact on communities and budgets. But the benefits far, far outweigh these impacts. And we will negotiate rights packages that will ensure maximum benefit for the city as a whole. Chair, the reality is that if we followed the ANC and the ACDP line of thinking, we would never have had a FIFA World Cup or a Lions Tour, or we wouldn't have a Netball World Cup in 2023. You have to be far more fast moving. And so I want to say thank you to Cope and Al Jamaa, who have showed more long-term vision. Thank God the ACDP and ANC aren't governing, because our city would not be a very dynamic or competitive space, and we wouldn't be hosting major events. So this is absolutely critical that we move this. And Chair, perhaps just briefly, it needs to be said that a lot of misinformation has been spread by some persons around the... Okay, conclude, Alderman. Thank you, Chair. By the around the e-events. The city is not the right holder for the Formula E holdings. The Formula E holdings companies, we're not the right holder for the for Formula E event. So to blame the city is ridiculous. E-Movement, which is a BEE company, negotiated their own agreements there. And if you don't put in an events application, we can't consider you. So thank you, Alderman. Is able to make such an events application. Thank you, Speaker. Councillor Kasim has a point of clarity.
Yeah, Speaker, what I would like to know is, will the circuit have, permanence and be available in the future, or is it just going to be a one-time development? Thank you.
Alderman Smith, can you respond to that question?
Thank you, Chair. The civils being done apply to the facility in perpetuity. These are civils that will be available for other users of that precinct to use. If that lends itself to further applications that we can get support of from the community and that are economically viable and that don't break the bank, we can do this. I mean, the original Grand Prix applications came in with massive price tags. many factors bigger than we're talking about now. And I'm talking huge price tags, Speaker. So if we can find affordable events that we can host within this range and they bring jobs and opportunities and investment and tourism marketing to our city, absolutely.
Thank you very much. So we have the recommendation on page 482, and the ANC and the ACDP have indicated they do not support the item. Are there any other parties against?
Patriotic Alliance do not support.
Thank you. Then with that noted, we will move the recommendation. Thank you very much. We are now moving on to volume 3, which is item C17. And we're going to start with Councillor Majingo. The EFF have indicated their no. Okay. So Councillor Majingo. Councillor Majingo, are you available? Councillor McCarthy, is Councillor Majingo there?
Speaker, I have changed Councillor Majingo to Councillor Sono because he does not have a voice to speak. I'm not sure whether Councillor Sono is joined now because she was cut off earlier. I'm checking on the list.
Thank you. Can you other councillors in the iron box stop your tit for tat?
No, she was not on the.
Do you have another speaker, or can we move the item?
No, we can move, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Councillor Golding, will you move the recommendation, please?
Sure, Chair. This is non-viable land, 66 square meters, and it's somebody's driveway, and we'll get 225,000 rand. I therefore move this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we all support the recommendation? Thank you. Then we're moving on to item 18. Councillor Cottle.
Thank you, Speaker. This item deals with infrastructure planning and delivery framework. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, a recovery program was developed to respond to the resultant negative economic and social impacts on Cape Town and the ensuing fiscal constraints on the city. Recovery requires a long-term disciplined approach to the delivery of services underpinned by evidence to ensure that the right decisions are made at the right time. Post-COVID financial constraints mean all investment choices have to be made strategic and data-driven. The fiscal impacts of COVID-19 have been particularly severe for capital programs, but also the ability to finance operations and maintenance of an asset over its life cycle. There is a strong economic case for appropriate and effective infrastructure investment as a primary lever to support post-COVID-19 economic recovery. This case is emphasized by international trends for targeted municipal spending towards infrastructure as a recovery catalyst. The framework establishes a prioritization approach that can be applied to projects and programs to provide an evidence base for decision-making. It provides a method and process for carrying out additional critical layers of project analysis to support decision-making. Further, the framework brings into focus the objectives of meeting expansion, backlog and maintenance requirements while ensuring sustainable service delivery and improved economic outcomes. Speaker, this framework will be a first for the city and for South Africa and leverages existing investment in project and portfolio management and sector planning, which enables the city to take an evidence-based, data-driven and integrated approach to long-term and strategic infrastructure investment and delivery. And so, Speaker, this framework demonstrates the forward-thinking, progressive planning and proactivity of a well-run city. Madam Speaker, I accordingly move that the recommendations before Council be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kulwana.
Enkosi Somlomo, mandivulise.
na le item iphambi kwethu namhlanje isinika ingqwalasela ethi akekho urhulumente ongenaso isicwangciso sokwenza izinto, kodwa lena namhlanje ithatha amalungelo ngokomthetho afanele into okokubana akwiofisi kasodolophu, ngoba xa uyilandela ayikuniki into ethi ngubani responsible for yona. Now inhlungu ke somlomo into okokubana kudala siyiqaphela le nto yokuba kula candelo le-corporate services umhlekazi lo onikwe ulawulo phaa ufuna ukuthatha yonke into. Now xa umane unikwa ke uyokroba ekoyini,
Councillor,
ude ucinga into okokubana ufanele into yobana ibe nguwe.
Councillor, can I ask you to stop at an appropriate pause so that the interpreter can continue?
Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. The item that we are about, I am sure that there is no organization that does not have a vision of a reason. Now, all these things are in the office of the mayor. And then if there is somebody that is every time given an opportunity to have a look into things that are happening in the mayor's office, that particular person should know what is actually happening. Thank you, Speaker.
Continue, Councillor.
Mandiyeke speaker interpretation mandithethe isilungu kwenza abantu ezawusiva izawulahleka. All spheres of government has a clear role to play in enabling the economic growth place and strategic investment, particularly in relation to public infrastructure and service provision. Meanwhile, effective service delivery and maximizing spending on the right types of infrastructure within a sustainable financial framework is critical. At the same time, the additional economic and fiscal pressure created by the pandemic means the financial infrastructure and services is more challenging and will continue to be so for a foreseeable. Now, if you look at the investment framework or the item before us today, it do away with what is on the built environment performance plan, which is a city's investment program to integrate the cities in the city of Cape Town. This is what is expected to do. The plan before us does not recognize the lack of roads, the lack of
Councillor.
upgrade, as well as the integration of.
Councillor Majingo.
Speaker, Councillor Ngulwane has got all the minutes.
Sorry.
Indicated to the speaker, so he's supposed to speak for all the 4 minutes.
Okay, I apologize. Councillor Nkwana, you can carry on.
You see, the phenomenon runs with a person at all times. The usuality of you, Mr. Speaker, following Imfene Ngapha is carrying upon you everywhere you go. I have 4 minutes here and you are cutting me. The item before us today is not integrating what is expected, because for a city to be an investment-friendly city, it must be able to upgrade the informal settlements and also do a proper urbanization program, because it does not make sense for any of the department or any of government sphere to do well in economic recovery, whereas informal settlements are keeping growing every day in the city. Urbanization cannot be controlled by an arrogant government such as the city of Cape Town. Instead, it must be welcome and upgrade the infrastructure that is within the city. Now, if you talk about this item before us today, is exactly what we call appropriation of power from the city, from the office of the city manager to the office of the executive director, corporate services, because there are portfolio committees responsible for economy in the city. But looking at this item as it is a well thought and drafted for the purpose of taking power from the sleeping on duty of the city manager by Executive Director, Corporate Services. In this instance, Mr. Speaker, we don't support this item as it is, because it is a duplicate of the build program of the city of Cape Town.
Thank you, Councillor. Alderman Ace.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to repeat that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the DA-led City of Cape Town developed a recovery program to respond to the resultant negative economic and social impacts on the city. The city not only needs to respond to the impact of COVID, but we must also plan for the future fiscal constraints on the city. And it is this team that has put together the framework that was awarded the Global Public Service Team of the Year for the city's COVID crisis coordinating team. The framework establishes a mechanism to ensure the city's 10-year pipeline of infrastructure investment and that it delivers optimally. Delivery of projects within the built environment is very complex due to legislative stipulations, i.e. projects will require managing a complex procurement and contract environment. The city's engagement, and this Councillor Ngilwana must take note of, the city's engagement with National Treasury. It was clear that the city is far ahead of other metros, and it was mentioned that what this DA-led city is doing is acknowledged by Treasury as an example for other metros. The framework and portfolio show that the city can spend their allocated budgets on 2,500 projects over the next 10 years, mostly to support core services. The item, the presentation, was delivered to and presented to all portfolios as it is a very transversal framework. And between 2 and 6 August, the Corporate Services Directorate did 10 presentations. I therefore ask that we take note of this item and that we agree that it comes to Council to ensure that the knowledge and awareness of this critical piece of technical work is elevated accordingly. And I move that the recommendations on page 52 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillors. We have recommendations on page 52 and 53. The ANC are not in support of this item. Are there any other, either smaller parties or smaller opposition parties or opposition parties that are against this item? Councillor Dwani.
Yes. Please record the EFF is against. Number 2, EFF is not a smaller party. It is an opposition party.
Thank you, Councillor Dwani. Thank you. Your vote against is recorded. All right, then the motion is carried. The recommendation is carried. And then we move on. We move on to item 19. Councillor Visagie.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we have further changes to the memberships of the PC committees. Councillor Joseph Mbolompo to be removed from General Appeals and Councillor Peter Halfrich to be added. And then as well, Councillor Rob Quintus to be removed from the Spatial Planning and Environment Portfolio Committee as well as from HOMAC. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you. We all agree with that recommendation? Thank you. Then we move on.
Can I, Madam Speaker?
Councillor Dwani.
Can I didn't hear the name of Councillor Ndaba Zandile, who will be now with corporate services, and it is not a committee. I don't know whether the council whip has just left that.
Councillor, that's already in the report.
All right.
Is it in the report? Just hang on a second. I'm just going to get clarity.
You see, EFF must be in power. We keep on.
Councillor, I'm just getting clarity on this matter.
I'm very patient, Speaker. EFF is a very patient organization.
We're very grateful, Councillor.
We're not like those ones, your friends, the ones in the yellow t-shirts.
All right, we're going to just allow the whip to repeat what is required in terms of this item. Recommendation.
She must make proper amendments. Also,
okay, councillors, can you just mute yourselves now while the chief whip speaks?
To assist you, Speaker. Also, Councillor Muloto must be moved.
Yeah.
Councillor Dwani, just hang on, please. The whip is going to make the recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, Speaker would like to also add Councillor Ndumba Sandili to corporate services.
Okay, thank you. Then that recommendation 2 is carried. Thank you. We move on to item C21, and we're item 20 questions received from Councillor Kasim. There's no answer yet.
There's no.
Okay, carry on, Councillor Kasim. Are you okay that we bring the
That's yes. They're not ready. Let the matter stand over till the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your cooperation. Then we move on to item C21, and this is around the water strategy. Councillor Cotti.
Madam Speaker, councillors, good afternoon again. Can I proceed?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Speaker, on this item in 2015, the National Government of Water and Sanitation identified the Berg River to fall for augmentation scheme. This particular scheme formed part of the Trans-Caledon London Authority, Tunnel Authority, which was agreed on April 7 this year, which then concludes about 15 cubic milliliters of water per annum will be to the city of Cape Town, of which means it's about 40. Speaker, this augmentation scheme will have a lifespan of 20 years. It involves the abstraction of surplus winter water. It also involves a 6.3 kilometers pipeline. Speaker, let me allow me to say thank you very much to the ANC National Government, particularly the Water and Sanitation Department, and also to the Ministry in terms of being proactive in this program and programs to this program. And that's also linked to the previous discussion which we had also, Speaker. So I'm not going to bold much, but I would like to say thank you to the ANC National Government for its framework and the DA administration in the Western Cape just to follow those frameworks and guidelines. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Punt.
Thank you, Speaker. Madam Speaker, the item before us today, C21, that's for noting, display the City of Cape Town's commitment to our water strategy to prevent another day zero, and to the core goal by providing reliable, safe and affordable services to our 4 million customers. With the indicative water allocations and proposed water supply agreement, see page 13, between the National Department of Water and Sanitation and the City of Cape Town in respect of the Bergrivier full flow augmentation scheme, we as a DA-run city can now achieve one of our project goals of adding 15 million cubic meters per annum through our water strategy plan. This agreement is part of the long-term plan that the water strategy set out to bring additional capacity of over 300 million litres per day to mitigate future droughts. Due to the failure and bad planning, take note, Councillor Cotti, due to the failure and bad planning on the side of the ANC national government over the last 2 decades. We cannot rely anymore just on the 95% of the surface water which the national government control, and also their mandate, responsible for the country's water resources. A responsibility the ANC failed us on. Madam Speaker, the City of Cape Town is also committed to work together with all spheres of government for the best interest of our citizens. The current status of the Bergrivier Augmentation Scheme being implemented by the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority on behalf of the National Department of Water and Sanitation be noted as such. Also, to be noted is the City of Cape Town Supply Chain Management Department that advised the steps that should be followed, as the supply agreement is over 3 years. Thus, the process need to go through a Section 33 approval process. See page 39, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the commitment by the City of Cape Town with this agreement in this scheme can secure water of 15 million cubic meters per annum. This shows why a DA-run city, a DA government, is the only solution for the future. The City of Cape Town water strategy shows the commitment, planning and execution thereof, and the willingness to work together, displayed in this agreement between the Department of Water and Sanitation and the City of Cape Town. To conclude, the DA will keep the state entity, Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, and the National Department of Water and Sanitation accountable to the agreement and project, due to the fact that accountability lacks on the ANC side and normally covered by corruption. As Councillor Savant described the ANC.
Thank you, Councillor.
The ANC lost their moral compass. The ANC is the wolf in skaapklere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. This item is for noting, so we note the item. And then we move on to the last item on this agenda, which is item 24, a supply chain management item. Councillor Sakati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as you have just indicated, the item before us is the supply chain management report in the period of April and 30 June 2021, but included there is also the annual report of 2021. Ordinarily, this kind of report are actually for noting, and we do appreciate the fact that, and I think it is through the insistence of our leaders in the programming committee that these reports are we are now allowed to speak on them in the council. I'm noting this particular report, and it is quite a glossy report, I must say, because the report, it also talks about the demand plan, which talks about 249 tenders that were actually targeted and planned, or where 201 were actually awarded, with only 15% on the progress and 33 cancelled. But my concern, I just want to draw the attention of the awarded rate between 2019 and 2020-21. That is between those particular periods. If you remember, that is a period when the city was actually on COVID-19. I do wonder then as to in terms of the rate, because the rate is about 77% to 91% and 94% between that particular period of time. Now, the question that we're asking as the ANC is that how are those tenders awarded? Were they awarded in terms of the normal supply chain, the normal procurement processes, or is it deviation? And my view is that most of what is being given to us, it's deviations. That is why you find that glossy report of 91% and 94% between 2019-20 and 2020-21. But we are noting the report. We are noting the report as the ANC, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Siseka.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, I think that I welcome the noting of the report by Councillor Sakati. I think the report is a very good story to tell, And it's a good story to tell because of amount of work that has been put by the Director of Supply Chain, Basil Chinasami, and the CFO, and with obviously the support and the direction of the city manager. What is on page 10 and what Councillor Sakati is talking about is a testimony to what I've just said. In the past 3 years, you can see an improvement on the completion rate of awards of tenders, and the cancellation numbers of tenders is going down, which is a good indication. And it happens because of an concerted effort to make supply chain enabler into the service delivery, a partner in line department. Now, it's a very good story to tell, and we are grateful to you, city manager, to the CFO, and the director of supply chain. We'll continue support, and with the review of the supply chain policy, we will engage and support that. In response to what Councillor Sakati is talking about, the report speaks of the contracts that were awarded from 2018-19 financial year, that was before COVID, and 19-20, there's been an improvement. That those contracts would encompass obviously the contracts that were awarded at the time. And you would remember, Councillor Sakati, that we did see the report of it. We had the report of PPEs during the COVID from supply chain, and we've grown from strength to strength from that. These are not deviations. No, these are not deviations. Deviations are a different process altogether. But it's a very good story to tell, and I'm very grateful for what supply chain has been able to do in the city of Cape Town, and we welcome their transparency and their work, and as the report is indeed for noting, Chair, we note the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, it is for noting, and so we note the report. Councillors, that concludes the open meeting. We now need to move into the confidential agenda. I'm asking you to please stay logged on to this meeting link, and we will just take a 10-minute break while we disconnect both the YouTube feed as well as any other members that are or people that are participating who should not be part of the confidential agenda. So the officials have 10 minutes to resolve that. Thank you. We'll be back at 1:50.